Hey, Steve, welcome back to the podcast.
Hey, Leo, how are you doing?
I'm very well. I'm pleasantly reminded of your excellent timekeeping skills. You always show up early every time we have one of our meetings. It's great.
Yeah, of course. I'm always ready. Like it is with consultations, you got to be ready before, because
Exactly.
otherwise you dig into the customer's time. So yeah, I'm always on time, man. Never miss a meeting.
It's fantastic. Steve, before we get into, for the audience that doesn't know, we have a topic for discussion today, which is a really exciting and interesting subject that affects
Right.
people, I think. Well, it's not technically most people, but I think it's quite a bit of people. Maybe most people by the time we're older. But before we
Right.
get into that topic, we haven't talked for a while. So I
hmm
thought we might briefly discuss if there are any news in Thailand, how the coronavirus is going on, how business is
Yeah,
going.
yeah, of course. So the coronavirus is pretty much over here, but there's a lot of protests now against the military government and the royal family. So I think they already announced the state of martial law.
Wow, really? Again? Okay.
Yeah,
Been a
and
while.
that's just today, so I haven't really read up on about it. But I believe gatherings of more than 5 people is no longer allowed. So but that's in the public areas where they're holding protests. So it's limited. Like if you're going to the mall, right? You're not putting 5 people in the same place is impossible.
Yeah.
So I believe that's at the protest area. So those protests have now been resolved, and yeah, so it's politically Thailand is not doing so well. Unfortunately, as a foreigner, I can't really go into it.
Yeah, exactly. I
Because
was
you
saying,
know, yeah, I like my stay here, so I prefer not to go into that side. But COVID side, it's going great. It's over here,
that's
and
great news.
they're slowly opening up the borders to tourists again. So I have 2 clients that want to come, so they're going through the process, and it's very intensive to get the visa and get over here because you need to do COVID testing before you fly. After you arrive, you need to quarantine for 2 weeks with 3 COVID tests. And then if you're in the green, yeah, they don't want new COVID cases in, and which is understandable. And so that's a whole process, and it's quite expensive. But the people who do have money, who are able to spend money in Thailand and contribute to the economy, those people are welcome. So I don't blame them. Yeah, because there were a couple like workers or Thai people that worked abroad and they came back and then they had COVID. Or there were diplomats coming in, they had COVID, and then they went out anyway because they thought the rules didn't apply to them, which is silly.
Yeah.
And then they had to, look up, okay, where they went, because you need to check in everywhere you go with, one of those apps. You use your phone and you scan a QR code, you check in. You have to wear masks. You get your temperature meter. So the restrictions are quite dramatic or intensive. But when you look at the total cases, we had almost 4,000 cases in total and 60 deaths.
Wow.
Over the whole country, over 80 million people or 78 million people. So it's not that, COVID didn't really affect Thailand besides, closing the borders and a ruined tourism industry.
Well, Thailand could have had I wish we could loan you our California government so that it could have affected you, because in Orange County, the gyms have not opened yet.
It's all over, man. It's all over. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy. The gyms have not opened. So actually, I have a neighbor, I live in a compound. I have a residential gym, which is open for 10% capacity, but the gyms in the actual area are not open still.
I don't know. It's like the governments are forcefully trying to weed out all the small businesses.
Yeah, it's like
that's what it seems like to me now. I mean, it's in the beginning, I think COVID is real, but the measurements being taken are either not severe enough, or they're so restrictive that it ruins it. For the middle class, basically, because the rich people are only getting richer. They know how to trade on the market. I made a couple of good trades during the COVID time as well. to be fair, but it's middle to lower class people that are really, really suffering, and all the small business, all the self-employed people are just slowly going belly up. And what leaves is, the big corporate guys, the Amazons and the big hotel chains and all that stuff. So let's see what 2021 is going to look like.
Now, on a more positive note, though, the last time I spoke to you, you had just become sponsored by, it's called Gorilla Mind, right?
Yeah, Gorilla Mind and Gorilla Mode. So the Gorilla Mind are the nootropic supplements, and then the Gorilla Mode are the pre-workout supplements or the workout supplements.
Oh, I had no idea. I thought it was just the nootropic side. So did
No,
you
they have
start
pre-workouts also. Yeah, so I mostly take the pre-workout stuff. Well, I used to. Now I'm training at like 50% intensity.
oh,
So
so discuss shortly.
right. So the pre-workout stuff, yeah, it's great. Derek sent me a sample, and then he asked me how is it. I said, dude, this stuff is fantastic. And then he posted sponsorship. So
I really like Derek. Actually, in the last 2 weeks or so, I've been having some DMs or emails about some
okay,
very
good.
specific topics related to hair loss and the neurosteroid.
Mm-hmm.
But
Right.
it's really fun to chat with him. Derek is one of the only other YouTubers who's really sincerely interested in understanding
Yeah,
things.
and he's very knowledgeable, and he's happy to share. Especially with his peers. Yeah, I mean, his channel blew up. He went from like 25,000 followers to almost 200 now in the course of a year, 1.5. So, and it's during COVID time, so he really put his effort completely into his YouTube channel and his business during this stressful time, and he really made the most of it. It's
Oh, I had no
commendable.
idea his recently grew like Greg.
Yeah,
Oh, wow.
if I go back in my messages, I probably congratulated him on 50,000 followers and 100,000 followers within this year, or maybe within the time we started chatting, and or within the time we started talking, and now he's almost at 200. So it's like a progressive increase, and I see it on my own channel. It's like impossible to get the first 5,000 followers. And then it just another 1,000 this month, another 1,500 this month. And you just see that in statistics, you just see the subscriber count increasing.
Well,
Nobody wants.
this is called snowballing, but this has not happened to me. So although I recognize it happens to other channels, I haven't experienced it even. In fact, my channel subscriptions have declined recently, which
Really?
yeah. I mean, slightly.
Wow.
Slightly.
Maybe it's because some of the guests. I'm joking. I'm joking.
No, I mean, I don't know. Sometimes I think it depends. Like if YouTube is recommending you frequently, you get
Yeah.
to that cycle and so on. But it's great to have more plates, more days doing so well. I think he's the only
Mhm.
very large channel that I find, very high quality, very high quality.
Right. Yeah. And to his, I think he admits that most of his growth come from doing the natty or not, or what is this guy's cycle, or his hair loss protocol. That's where a lot of his subscribers come from, which is a great strategy. Because you get people interested in this video, which is the general audience, and then you get them to stay and educate them on pharmacology or dating or pickup artist stuff.
Yeah, you have to
So
do that. You have to have like videos that bring in people and videos that keep people. Yeah. Which I don't do that, but I should. You're not doing that.
I should also, but I'm I like to comment a little bit, but not make a whole video about it, because then you open the door for somebody else to do that.
Exactly.
And I wouldn't like that either. Like right now, I'm going to do PCT, right, about the non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. And I'm sure at one point somebody's going to make a video and see, this guy is talking about health, but he's not health. Well, I wouldn't like that either.
Well, let's bring up the topic now, because that's a great way to discuss it. Like someone will bring up, say, oh, this guy's a health coach, but he has non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. Actually, it's not supposed to be something negative, because there's two things that you see there. First of all, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, the estimates in America are that about 40% of adult males have it.
40.
Yeah, about 40 and about 25 to 20% of adult
females. I read like 25, on the internet. So
that's
on the internet.
Of males, not adult. That's including children. When you make it adult, it goes even higher. So it's very common. And second, and the most important thing really is that who wants a coach who cares about their image so much that they're not honest people? The amazing thing, when you texted me about that, you texted me before you made the video on your channel.
Yeah. I mean, you're the guy to go to. So because you mentioned it in many videos, I'm like, fine, I gotta talk with Leo first, before I make this public.
What I mean to say is the attitude that you have is so humble and honest, and that's the kind of coach anybody would want. So I think anyone who talks badly against you for having a fatty liver or for saying you have a fatty liver is ridiculous. And second of all,
probably it's bad karma. I already know that if I get a video like that, it's just bad karma on their end, and and then karma will play out at the end anyway. So
how did you find out you had a fatty liver disease, or tell the audience?
Yeah, sure. So I do my cancer marker checkup every 3 years because I have cancers in my family, and I use growth hormone and IGF-1 sporadically, and insulin and all those peptides, which are greatly cancer growth promoting, of course, if you already have cancer. So I keep track of that. And my dad was recently diagnosed with prostate enlargement.
Oh.
But so he's the kind of guy that's just going to let it sit. And doesn't go to the hospital, doesn't get a biopsy, doesn't do blood work. It's what is that generation called from the 70s? Baby boomers.
Yeah, the baby boomers.
Just put it on the back burner and then let it completely metastasize until they close to death. So I'm not that guy. So when he got prostate enlargement and said it was bothering him, so I immediately went to the hospital and got my cancer markers checked, which my PSA and free PSA are totally fine. And all my other cancer markers was fine, but my neuronal specific annulase was out of range, about 150%. So when I compared the previous 3 cancer marker screeners that I had, instead of like 15, I'm not sure what the concentration is, but mine is usually between 15 to 16 or 14 to 15, and it should be below 17, I believe. So it was 28.
What's this marker used to test for which cancers?
Yeah, so that's the problem. It's like these cancer markers are not specific to one organ. A neuronal specific annulase, you would think it's the brain, right? But it's in anything that responds to the endocrine system. And in particularly neurosteroids.
Oh, interesting.
Or neuro. What was it? It was not neurosteroids. It was something else. It's just something has to do with the endocrine system, and then it affects the lung, the brain, the pancreas, the liver. Like a million different organs. So after 2 days of reading on the internet, and I talked with you, already, I couldn't, it was before I talked with you. So I did 2 days of research and I couldn't figure it out. So I was like, okay, let's go to the hospital, get a checkup and talk with a cancer expert. So I sat there for 30 minutes explaining the whole situation. And they recommended to just do an ultrasound of the entire abdomen and the X-ray of the upper chest, because I have some heart problems in the past. So we just did a full checkup, and then everything came back fine except for the liver, which was not the reason why I went in, but it was diagnosed, during this checkup. And then the lady that did what is this called, the ultrasound lady, she showed it me right on the screen, a little bit condescending. You have fatty liver disease.
Yeah, they like to say that and be condescending because they only learned about it 10 years ago, and they want the people to think that they really know about it. In reality, no doctor or nurse knew anything about fatty liver disease 10 years ago.
Yeah, I was more concerned with my pancreas. It's because I'm taking exogenous insulin and high carbohydrate diet and low carbohydrate diet, and even though my hemoglobin H1C is always in range and my fasting insulin is always great, you're still a little bit concerned. So my pancreas was squeaky clean. 100%.
Not fatty? They couldn't tell if it's fatty?
No, it's not fatty, and then normal size, and no little dots or, what is it called? Hematomas? Or that's not in the pancreas, it's in the liver.
Hematomas it's just a blood,
Right, a little blood clot. So the pancreas is all fine, prostate normal size fine, kidneys fine, bladder fine, stomach fine, everything, but fatty liver.
Well, that's great news, first of all. I'm glad to hear that all your organs.
Right, so I was happy with the results. And then, of course, the doctor that tells you the results, you don't have cancer, don't worry, you don't have pancreas. And then they see if the liver for last, which they already showed on the ultrasound, right? So I already saw that it was, different color than what it should be.
What were I know you pay more attention to the gamma metric, but what were your ALT and AST for the last couple of years?
So since the carnivore diet was about 80 to 100, 120, 150 after I did super draw, which I was surprised. I was expecting it way higher. But maybe because fatty liver disease doesn't metabolize that well. I got great results, from those. I was so fucking hard. And I was like, man, the super draw is great. But it could be like, impaired metabolism, impaired glucocoordination. So, I was happy with the result, and I did my blood work right after, and my ALT and AST was like 120, 150. I was like,
not absorbing it.
Not that much higher than normal. And terrible. Bodybuilding is so terrible, man. And then my liver enzymes were like progressively increasing after the carnivore diet. Before the carnivore diet, it would come back in range when I would fast or take some time off from heavy training or take time off from steroids altogether. So it would come back in range. And then after the carnivore, they didn't really. The lowest I got them was like 50, 40, 50. And it was after a week fasting and a week off. And so I thought, okay, those 40, 50 extra, that's from training. Because you have these, these aminotransferases are all in the muscle mass. And I know that they increase just from training alone. So I always wrote it off on that, and so they've been like kind of stable at 3 times out of range, 2 times out of range, and no side effects. I only noticed the only side effect that I noticed was reduced fat loss, which became increasingly difficult because the triglycerides from stored body fat that need to go into the liver and be cleaved off to short chain triglycerides, making it easier for fat loss, right? And with fatty liver, that process is impaired, or from what I understand.
Yeah.
So I found that last 2 years fat loss was getting more difficult, and then you think, okay, I'm training hard, but I'm also getting older. Maybe my metabolism is going down. Maybe just I need to restrict calories more. And these changes are so gradual that I didn't realize it could be fatty liver disease. And I was taking like choline and ezetimibe for years, and then you go by your liver enzymes, so like, oh, they're still elevated, so it probably doesn't work. So I took it out. And I think that's like 6 months before I did that carnivore experiment.
It's very interesting that you mentioned the carnivore experiment, because I saw you mention that in your video as well. And for most, like if you said this to a doctor, most doctors would think that it's probably just your imagination, because when you're on the carnivore diet, you're eating the least amount of quickly absorbed carbohydrates, and you should have the greatest insulin sensitivity.
Right.
And generally speaking, the non-alcoholic fatty liver disease develops in a state of either diabetic or pre-diabetes, something like that. So they would think if you're on a carnivore diet, your insulin sensitivity was higher, so you shouldn't have developed it then. But potentially it could actually be the opposite. You could have went into a carnivore diet and your insulin sensitivity increased so much that it caused it thwarted your metabolism in some way, and
could be, yeah. You get it. Your DNA adjusts. What is it called? Polymorphism? Is that the one?
Epigenetics. Yeah, maybe
epigenetics. Yeah, right. Yeah.
No, I'm not just talking about epigenetics. But what I mean to say is, like, for example, if your body's used to not having to use a lot of insulin, and your body becomes very well, I don't know, but basically what I'm saying is it could be possible that you could be eating carbohydrates. Your liver may not be used to creating glycogen and storing it in the muscle. So it could de novo create lipogenesis quickly just because it's not used to it. But I don't know. I mean, this is just my imagination. But
no, and it was pure speculation on my part. I just went through all my blood work because, I've got so much now that I can put it into graphs. So I went through over my graphs and I see, fluctuating a little bit, and then whoop, fluctuate here. And that was right around the time of the carnivore diet. But to be fair, I was eating like half a pack of butter and a brick of cheese every day because I needed 5,000 calories. So
on that topic, there is one very well-known paper that demonstrated that it seems that the majority of the fat that is stored in the liver during non-alcoholic fatty liver disease does not come from lipolysis of adipocytes.
Right.
It does not come from burning fat, but rather from de novo lipogenesis, which means the creation of new fat from food at the liver. So it seems that the bulk of the fat on the liver comes from fat that was created at the liver from new food.
Right. And it wouldn't surprise me. I mean, I was eating 100, 150 grams of saturated fat per day, and I felt great. But I think a part of that might have been stored in the liver. So after that.
So that definitely is possible, but basically what I'm trying to say is the last 10 years of research has indicated for most people, the fat on the liver comes from carbohydrates as opposed to fat in the body or fat you're consuming. But that might not be the case with you. It could have been you could have been eating a lot of.
Yeah, I've been in ketogenic diet for like 15 years now. And then my off season I did a high carbohydrate diet. But my blood sugar levels were all in range. Every time my triglycerides were in range, and my HDL, my lipids are all good, or acceptable for being on hormone replacement or moderate cycle.
What is your
HDL is like 40 to 60 on cycle. So LDL is 110 to 130.
By the way, I didn't mention this earlier, but I've had NAFLD before as well. I've probably had NASH, which is steatohepatitis. So basically, let's just review this for the listener, just how this works. Basically, there's a phenomenon that's been discussed a lot in the last 20 years, especially the last 10 years, called NAFLD. It's kind of liver disease. There are a few kinds of liver disease. Like one is called polystatic liver disease, one's called liver cancer. This kind of liver disease, it begins with the deposition of fat inside hepatocytes, which are liver cells, as well as in between the cells in the extracellular space on the liver. The liver slowly gets fatty. As it gets fatty, there used to be a theory of liver disease, of non-alcoholic fatty liver disease called the two-hit theory, in which it was thought that once the fat is on the liver, then if there is insult to the liver or oxidative stress or something traumatic, then the liver can develop a state of inflammation called steatohepatitis, which is called NAFLD. So there's NAFLD. If you get an insult or oxidative stress, it used to be thought, then you would develop the inflammation. Once the inflammation is there, then the body starts to store collagen at the liver, like scar tissue, and this is called cirrhosis, exactly. Yeah. And then after cirrhosis, maybe you could get liver cancer. So it proceeds in that fashion. Most people get NAFLD and never get NASH and never have side effects from it, and they just have mild, and they don't even know they have it, right? But some people it turns into NASH, and then some people into cirrhosis, and then cirrhosis is basically scarring at the liver. It loses function, and then it either has to be replaced or
and it's the same with glomerular sclerosis in the kidneys and testicular sclerosis. Because you're on steroids for such a long time.
They all have fibrosis in them.
Yeah, and fibrosis. Yeah, so it's So luckily on the ultrasound that wasn't the case. So they asked them, is there any sign of sclerosis, and they said no. And they did a very extensive audit. It was like, when the lady saw that I had fatty liver, she just kept taking pictures just to make sure. Like they do a routine checkup. It's okay. Okay, next organ. So the liver, they ultrasounded extensively. So there was luckily no sign of sclerosis and no biliary obstruction. Bile flow is normal. So there's no change of stool color and that kind of stuff.
So the biliary obstruction, which happens under cirrhosis, is the main reason we take TUDCA. It's because it's bile salt and it deals with that. That obstruction is called cholestatic disease, which happens in some pregnant females, and I think some other scenarios. It can probably happen in bodybuilders also. But so this is the point. If somebody was going to make fun of somebody that has NAFLD, it's ridiculous, because in bodybuilding and fitness sports, it's very likely to develop NAFLD.
A lot of people have it, because I've seen this blood work. Like a lot of clients, they can't afford this kind of ultrasounds and tests and regular blood work, right? So I've seen it on several other clients where their liver enzymes just stay high for 6 months, and I tell them it's time to go off.
Yeah.
So and then do a liver cleanse. But with me, it was so gradual, and you're like, okay, you got a reputation to keep. We got to stay on cycle. And it's a little bit of pressure of social media, right? Because everybody's waiting me to post the workout videos, and I see that they all save it. You get like 50 saves per Instagram post. And
we could talk about that more in more detail. Yeah. But so the interesting thing is this. Let me just mention something else, which is that when we judge our ALT and AST reference range, the reference range is made up purely out of the mean and a standard deviation from the mean. So it has nothing to do with the health ranges. It's actually just what are you compared to other people. So the ALT and AST have increased dramatically, the mean AST and ALT, in the last 30 years. So actually, all of us think we're in the reference range because the reference range has moved in the last 20
years. Same as the testosterone reference range has decreased.
Exactly. But the ALT and AST have moved way more than the testosterone range decreased. So much
really?
more.
So,
yeah. Because of the NAFLD in the population is so high. So actually, many of us are in the range and still have NAFLD.
Right. Yeah.
So
of course.
In the range and have NAFLD, and you could get an fMRI, not even just an ultrasound, and they could tell you don't have NAFLD, and you may also still have NAFLD. So it's not even.
So that's why I decided to do the ultrasound, because it's a little bit more detailed. Of course, it's not as detailed as the MRI. But then you need a little bit of a contrast to see what's going on, with the radioactive iodine. So I might do that in the future, but it's going to be on my heart. Just waiting for a good deal. But fuck, man, it's like a $2,000
for the fMRI.
No, for the MRI.
Yeah, I did that on my heart recently. Also, it's great. You're gonna love it. You're gonna feel so great.
It's gonna be fun sitting in the tunnel and getting iodine injected through your what was the vein in your hip. That one. I think
they usually do, but I don't remember where they did to me. But the main problem is falling asleep during the thing, because you're there for 4 hours and something, and you just end up falling asleep. And every time you fall asleep, it throws off the study, because you're there. They're seeing, like, you have to stop breathing and count, and they make you count for a period of time, and then they see how your heart is. Then they make you breathe and see how your heart is. Well, I kept falling asleep, so every time I fall asleep, they're like, you just messed up the whole thing.
Right. I have to see, because I still got a plate in my leg from a motorbike accident like over 10 years ago, which I should get removed. But, when you're a bodybuilder, you don't want to take 2 months off, right? So let's see how that turns out.
Yeah, that's a big problem for their machine.
Yeah, it's probably close to the machine. Maybe my leg will get like swaying up in the in the magnets. Let's see if that works out. So I'm waiting for a good deal, and then hopefully I can get a discount and do it for $1,000 because it's pricey, to do all these tests.
Yeah, very absolutely. And that's another incredible thing. You're paying for all the tests yourself. I saw in your video, which is really motivational because some of us can get discounts and we still resist going to get these tests.
Yeah, but what I do is I save money every time I make a bodybuilding investment, and whether that's performance enhancers or a gym membership or supplements, I just put the same money aside. That's my saving method. So I 200% everything, and then the savings account can more than cover the medical expenses. And I've been doing that for years. I even made a video about it. How to save money. Of course, nobody does that, but I just double up on everything, and then put it in a savings account for medical expenses, and I could buy a car with that if I wanted to, or I can spend it on health. So the $750 that I spend on all these tests, that was a little bit more because I did blood work before that. So let's say $800, $900 in total for the whole checkup. Yeah, it doesn't make a dent, because I've been saving money.
Yeah, but we all, as someone who used PEDs before myself, we know the feeling of not. It's like when you didn't study well in school and you don't want to open your report card because when you open it becomes real. You know what I mean? That's the thing. Exactly. But you're not sure if you did study well or not, or you got lucky.
Yeah, and you did it to yourself 100%.
Exactly.
It's 100% self-inflicted. Like when I had my motorbike accident and I broke my leg, you laid it on the floor. You can't blame yourself because I got hit by another car, and then you just got to deal with it. But this, I 100% did it to myself. I did the carnivore diet by myself. I took all the steroids by myself. I followed, I took out choline and ezetimibe supplementation all by myself. So you get that, and you're like.
Well, you bring that up now. Let's discuss that briefly so people understand why is choline part of this. And I texted you about it before. There is a doctor actually still working. His name is Alan Buchman from Chicago. This guy in the early 1990s is the one who created this choline NAFLD link. In fact, he showed that NAFLD is a vitamin deficiency disease like rickets.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So you get, if you don't have vitamin D, you get rickets. If you don't have vitamin C, you get scurvy. If you don't have choline, you will get NAFLD no matter what. So even if you don't have oxidative stress at the liver, you don't take steroids, you don't do anything. If your diet is deficient in choline, the liver starts to have a dysfunction in its ability to regulate fatty acids. Right. So it will become an NAFLD with that. And how did he discover this? Buchman was dealing with parenteral nutrition, people who were in comas, things like that, and they're giving them nutrition according to their, in their vascular structure. And when they noticed when choline was deficient in the diet of the parenteral nutrition, NAFLD would develop, and steatosis would also usually develop eventually after a few weeks. And when they re-add choline to the diet, steatosis goes away and NAFLD goes away also.
Okay. Yeah.
So it is a vitamin deficiency disease, but it can also come about in other scenarios, mainly two other scenarios. The first other scenario is basically around metabolic syndrome and diabetes. And that's a complicated subject. We can get into it later. The second scenario is insult or oxidative stress at the site of the liver, which is, I think, what you've been paying most of your attention to. Because you've been thinking mostly about the androgens, I noticed, which androgens, of course, at high levels, they cause oxidative state and stuff like that at the side of the liver. Interestingly, and I'm saying this because I know you plan to go off steroids. At low levels, androgens actually increase fat lipolysis at the liver. So it actually, TRT has been used at low levels to cause NAFLD to reverse NAFLD in studies.
Oh, really? I didn't know that. Okay.
From the 70s, almost nobody knows.
I don't need to go off.
You don't need to go off at all. In fact, if you go off, it'll worsen the speed at which the fat will go out of the liver.
Unfortunately, now you're telling me to stay on cycle.
Good news, yeah.
But this is like 100 milligrams of TRT.
Yeah, something like 100
replacement, right?
Or even 250. Just enough androgens will get the fat out of the liver.
But let's put it this way. So what I'm doing right now, real quickly, I stopped injecting 2 weeks ago. I'm just going to let everything clear until basically it's zero, and then do a PCT. But those, my testosterone levels on ACG is like 700 nanograms per deciliter, 700, 800 nanograms per deciliter. And on Clomid and Nolvadex, well, I haven't checked in a few years, but I suspect it to be sufficient, comparable to, bottom of the TRT range.
Yeah, so you could stay on HCG and take an aromatase inhibitor, a slight low dose aromatase inhibitor, and you would be at that therapeutic range for getting rid of fat of the liver.
Mm-hmm.
So let's discuss briefly the subject of metabolic syndrome. Why is it linked to NAFLD? It's not clear, by the way. I've thought about this a lot myself, and there's a guy who's very famous. I know you've watched him before. The doctor from Canada. His name's Fung. Talks a lot on YouTube about this. But basically, what he's talking about is stuff from the research, and the outcome is basically this: 70% or so of diabetics, type 2 diabetics, have NAFLD. And if you have NAFLD, you're 2 times as likely to develop diabetes. But you're also 2 times as likely to develop cardiovascular disease and all kinds of other things.
It's not a healthy state to be in.
Yeah, basically. But the weird thing is basically this. It seems like most people who have NAFLD also have metabolic syndrome. Actually, let's be specific. Most people who have NAFLD have insulin resistance. So this is really interesting to me because you use a ketogenic diet and you shouldn't have high insulin levels throughout the day. So
no. Well, I do take a little bit of Lantus, long-acting.
Exactly.
insulin.
I was about to say.
But it's like 5 to 10 units, So how does that compare to, a carbohydrate diet with 300 carbs or 500 carbs, and some of those are processed. So I'm not sure what the amount of units of insulin are going to be.
I mean, it's at 5 to 10 units of Lantus is a tiny amount. It shouldn't factor in, but that's the element there. So there's the Lantus that I was thinking about. The second thing is you may be eating. This is why I think most bodybuilders have NAFLD. They eat very frequently during the day. We become insulin resistant at the latter half of the day. So as melatonin rises, melatonin is potently makes people insulin resistant. In fact, by the way, not only does it make people insulin resistant, but it actually makes you store fat. And I've been megadosing melatonin.
I didn't know that. So I've been taking like 3 milligrams of melatonin every night.
I've been taking 100 milligrams last few days, and I've actually gained fat, which I was really surprised by. So there's
milligrams. How do you wake up? You know where you are, or
you actually adapt to it over time. So I started with I have a video on this called melatonin.
How many tablets is that? That's like 30 tablets.
Well, my tablets are 10 milligrams. So usually I'll end up taking 5 to 10 tablets per night, depending.
So even though you stop bodybuilding, you still got those bodybuilding tendencies. You have to take them.
Well, I'm trying to optimize. Yeah. Okay, so listen.
Never stops. No, once you do this to yourself, this bodybuilding, you're like so hypochondriac, and you just have this medicine tablet, and it weighs 1 kilo per week.
Oh my god!
Supplements you take. It's crazy.
I take so many. I have like the pharmacy pill bottle. I take at least 2 of those every day. A whole bottle of pills, but it really helps. So the point is, what I was trying to get to is that maybe as bodybuilders, you guys are eating throughout the day. So your insulin sensitivity is highest in the morning and then goes lower through the day. Maybe you have a lot of those nightly meals. Maybe that, but there's some kind of insulin resistance. I think it's almost impossible to have NAFLD without insulin resistance. How could you check oral glucose tolerance tests really quickly? You could go to it's cheap also. They'll do it.
I think I've done that in the past and it was fine, but it might have been over 2 years ago.
You should be hyperinsulinemic, is what I would assume.
Yeah, but my insulin level, my fasted insulin levels are probably even lower than the reference range.
The fasted insulin level is not very helpful at understanding the insulin response. You need the glucose for that. So you need the glucose test, the OGT.
Okay, sure, I'll go do it, no problem.
No, I mean you don't really have to. But what I'm trying to say is there's definitely there's oxidative stress or stress at the liver. There's the insulin resistance, and then there's a choline deficiency, and these are the things that produce NAFLD. But I just before I was speaking to you, I wrote some notes down. I was thinking if I was, because I do this for clients sometimes rarely clients have NAFLD and talk to me about it, but this is sort of the approach I would use on myself. I thought I'd write you some notes of how I would approach it.
I got a whole list of.
No, not that I know any better than you at all. It's just because I had it before and I removed it in myself. I definitely did that.
So in your experience, it's you already removed it, so.
Very
so let's go over what you did, and then we can discuss what I plan to do, and then
so let me
solve in 2 months.
Exactly. So let me just mention some things for the audience to know. There's one genetic polymorphism called the PNPLA3, I think. It is one gene that has one SNP, which is extremely strongly associated with NAFLD. This SNP is the only reason that Mexicans and South Americans in general are much more likely to get NAFLD than Caucasians and Africans and so on. So it's useful to check. You may have, someone listening to this may have that polymorphism. I would say my Caucasian clients, about 20% of them have that polymorphism. So it's important to check because it's not understood how it increases fat deposition at the liver, but it definitely does dramatically.
And then if you have, you can take the proper precautions to prevent it, right?
Yeah, a couple of other things I wanted to mention. There are a lot of drugs that have, I always make these videos on different subjects. So I come across a lot of drugs or phytochemicals that have effects on NAFLD, but some of them have interesting effects. The two that I wanted to mention that have interesting effects are Ezetimibe. Ezetimibe, also called Zetia, is a cholesterol medication that I take personally to amplify the effect of my statin. It actually increases fat lipolysis at the liver. So sometimes, for example, if I was going to have a client who was trying to, we'll bring this up later. But first, Ezetimibe. The second thing is PPAR gamma. I know you take, I think you take telmisartan. No, you take nebivolol. You there, Steve? I think you froze. Oh, you're back.
Oh, yeah.
Hey.
Okay. Thank God. Yeah, you dropped out halfway through the most important message that is going to cure people.
Yeah.
Or I dropped out. I'm not sure.
Yeah. So I just had to record that, so I remember to cut that part out. So sorry about that. What's the last thing you heard? Ezetimibe or PPR gamma?
No, that before that. Yeah.
Okay. So Ezetimibe.
Yeah.
Ezetimibe is a cholesterol medication that causes fat lipolysis at the liver. Lipolysis at the liver.
So was the last part that I heard. Yeah.
Ezetimibe is interesting. PPAR gamma is a receptor complex that a bunch of diabetic medications target. It's a sister receptor of the PPR delta that cardarine effect.
Right.
Those medications, they're called zones. They end in zones, pioglitazone, things like that. Those things help fat stay in the right places in the body. So they help prevent you from developing fatty liver from, for example, burning fat, subcutaneous fat.
Right.
So those drugs, unfortunately, they have side effects, which is most of them cause more fat storage in the periphery. So they'll cause more subcutaneous fat storage, but less visceral fat storage. And those drugs are maybe not that attractive, but one of the blood pressure medications, telmisartan, also agonizes that receptor complex and is not strong enough to cause fat, extra fat storage. So that's one other attractive target. And that's all. So let me tell you about my approach, how I would go about this. So first of all, I would add choline to the diet. So the choline requirement for males in the US is around 550 milligrams, for females around 450. I take around 1,000 milligrams from phosphatidylcholine.
Yeah.
Of phosphatidylcholine from sunflower lecithin.
Right. So I ordered that already on your recommendation. Yeah.
So I keep that in, all year round. Recently, you haven't been eating as many egg yolks and meat, so you may have actually been deficient.
Yeah, so I've added egg yolks in maybe 8 months ago. So, when I look at my choline intake, it's like 3,000 milligrams per day. But from dietary sources,
Okay, that's great then. You're good. So that's the first thing. The second thing is something I saw you mention in your video. So I've noticed this doing longer fast myself, but the first 2 days of a fast, my metabolism stays a bit high. And then after that, it really drops. That realization, combined with the realization from academic papers that the majority of the visceral fat is burnt during an extended fast during the first 2 days.
You would think it would be later because you need to be glycogen depleted, right? But it's actually in the beginning. Okay.
That's surprising. First, it's a glycogen depletion for the first few hours, and then after the liver glycogen is gone, then and the other glycogen, parts of the other glycogen, not completely, the liver starts losing fat.
Okay.
So within 48 hours.
I'm on my 4th day of fasting now, so.
Oh, wow. Really? Interesting.
Yeah.
So what I would do personally is I would do like a 2-day fast, 1 day eating, 2-day fast, 1 day eating. It really rapidly you'll lose all the fat of the liver within a couple of cycles of that. Already.
Yeah, I'm sure. So when we did my ultrasound, I asked them if there was any signs of visceral fat, while I was there, but they said they couldn't really diagnose it. But all they said is that all the organs were spaced together in normal, the normal spacing, right? Because normally the visceral fat would push the organs apart a little bit. But in the ultrasound, they couldn't really detect if there was visceral fat. But the only thing they noted is that the organs were together in the normal, vicinity.
So basically, that means you're not a 600-pound person with visceral fat, but you could
I
still
didn't know that.
yeah, you can still have visceral fat. You can still have visceral fat. What I mean to say is this. Usually the studies with NAFLD end up showing pancreatic fat as well as other visceral fat. It seems to be that once the liver's function has been thwarted and it starts to
then it goes everywhere.
Yeah, it goes everywhere. That's what seems to happen actually. So but it doesn't matter. So what I would do personally, now there are some tricks to increase the effectiveness of these fasts for this purpose. So first of all, I like to use metformin and ACAR on the first 2 days of a fast anyway.
Quickly
go into that phase. But then after that, so first of all, I would like to keep choline in the diet. Second of all, I would like to keep adrenaline high. I didn't mention so far, your nebivolol could actually be potentially causing a little bit of this also, because it's blocking adrenaline, and adrenaline is that high amount of adrenaline is what initiates the sympathetic nervous tone, which is what burns that visceral fat so well.
Yeah, the epinephrine, it has some lipolytic properties, right? Yeah.
So exactly.
So could I mess up that protocol by taking ephedrine?
So you could take ephedrine, you could take clenbuterol, you could take there's salbuterol is I think the best beta agonist that I came across. I forgot the name.
People always ask me about it, but I used salbutamol when I was in asthma. When I was asthmatic in my younger years, and it never did anything to increase my heart rate or promote fat loss.
Because the salbutamol or whatever it is, I forgot that name, but that one is the most selective of all beta agonists of the beta 2 receptor over the beta 1. The beta 1 increases the heart rate the most. The beta 2 causes the shaking because it's also located in the brain in a part of the brain that guides motor. So that's what I would include. That I would include something that increases adrenaline. I would include something that like Ezetimibe if I had it on hand. I would
does watching a CNN count? Does that increase adrenaline?
I think that would
watching the presidential debates.
Actually, I have a perfect recipe for you. The way you do it is this is what I do to myself to cause myself unnecessary anguish during the day. Is you go watch a guy called Tim Pool on YouTube. He's a news reviewer. He's the guy who was on Joe Rogan who interviewed the CEO of Twitter. Remember that guy?
I didn't.
That was very good. You should watch that. So Tim Pool is he reviews news articles from a conservative perspective. Okay, so you watch him, and then you watch David Pakman, who reviews it from the left perspective, both on YouTube. Every 2 hours, and you get completely different viewpoints, and you go crazy. So,
anyway. So I can use one guy to antagonize the better one, and another guy to antagonize the better one.
Exactly.
Okay.
So if I was you also, I would use Cardarine as well. Although I know people have a lot of issues with Cardarine. Cardarine affects the PPR delta pathway, and Cardarine has been shown to decrease NAFLD in various studies as well.
Yeah, it's a bit difficult to order Cardarine and iCar right now. I mean, it's with the shipping and everything. Like delivery to Thailand is like 2 to 3 weeks now.
No, this is not necessary. This is just the perfect cycle, in my opinion, to reduce NAFLD. The final thing
I'll add it in. If it's perfect, it's perfect, right? I'm willing to fast a couple days per week and take a boatload of supplements to speed this up, for my own learning experience, and then make fat loss a little bit easier. And there's another health issue that I tackled.
And the other thing I would include is growth hormone in the first. Although I don't like it.
That's not coming out. Of course.
Okay, good.
Of course, you're gonna do PCT without growth hormone. That's that's tough, dude.
So the way I would approach it is this. First, I would make sure there's no nutrient deficiency, which apparently you didn't have anyway. Then I would do these cycles of 2-day fasts that are with performance enhanced. They will get rid of the fat. Now the question is, will you regain the fat or not? And that depends on 2 things. One is insulin sensitivity. And which basically, I mean, to me, you have a very, I mean, your lifestyle.
I think it's okay,
I mean, it should be okay, but you can find out from the OGTT. But to me, it seems okay. The only thing I would potentially include is more frequent fasts to keep insulin sensitivity good. And then the final thing is reducing oxidative stress at the liver, which was your original focus. But as long as you keep that down, then because the basic theory is that once the fat gets stored there, the oxidative stress causes the inflammation. So you want to keep it up, and then insulin sensitivity up.
So I've always been, I've been very on point with my inflammation by taking out the synthetic carrier oils and, making sure I get my vitamin E and my curcumin and all that stuff. But I do notice that sometimes my high sensitivity C-reactive protein goes up for no reason. And then I wonder, like, what is it? But that's been, going on for years. But I check everything. I do like full blood work every month. So, it's all these little minute changes. It might not mean anything.
So, I mean, your C-reactive protein should rise when your body has an insult to it that requires an inflammatory response. The only problem is if it's...
So it could be that those small changes could just be liver stress. Because that's where it's produced, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's produced at the liver, but it means it's an appropriate response. If your C-reactive protein rises and falls, it's appropriate. If it's chronically elevated, then you have a problem. Then you have the noise as opposed to signal inflammation, which causes damage over time.
Systemic inflammation for a long period of time, that's the worst, That's why I stick to pharmaceutical grade compounds now, because all these synthetic carrier oils and steroids, they're highly poisonous over, and nobody goes off cycle. I mean, I'm proof of that. I've been blasting and cruising for 8 years. And I think the first 3 years I was using, underground labs that I didn't really know what the quality was, because I wasn't as informed as I am now.
Yeah, I mean, we've all been there. We all learned through mistakes. But so people often ask me, lately people have been asking me this about this a lot. They've been saying, like, what are the best supplements for the liver? And so basically the way I would look at that is either you need a nutrient, choline. You may want to enhance bile fluid to improve function, TUDCA, which, by the way, the cousin of TUDCA, UDCA, is the only FDA-approved medication.
Yeah, so that's weird. And because when you go to iherb.com, they don't sell TUDCA because it's not FDA approved. So I have to get it from Nutricos, which I'm still not sure what the quality is. I ordered like 10 bottles, over the last, because a bottle only lasts like a week or two, if you take 1,000 milligrams per day. So I've been running that, and it lowered my liver enzymes by maybe 20 points, because I saw that my liver enzymes were elevated. So I think, okay, maybe it's like biliary obstruction. I'm not going to do an ultrasound yet. Let me add in the TUDCA to increase bile flow. And when I was during the off season eating or doing a bulk at 5,000 calories, it really helps to speed up the clearance, because you got so much bile flow. And that lubricates your stool, and you go to the bathroom regularly, but it didn't improve my my liver enzymes that much. So I've been running that for maybe 3 months now.
So in my opinion, like having more bile salts, especially TUDCA and UDCA, and there's a third one as well, all year is probably a good thing for the health of the liver. Yeah. Unless you're in a state of extreme liver dysfunction, it shouldn't cause a reduction in your ALT and AST. What will cause a reduction in the ALT and AST should be neither choline nor the bile salts, unless you're in a state of liver disease. What should reduce it is actually things that either downregulate inflammatory pathways like NF-kappa B, or things that reduce oxidative stress, like they go and actually deal with reactive oxygen species and nitrogen species. So something like vitamin C will do that. They'll actually neutralize these reactive species that are causing damage there. And then some other things will signal to the body to turn off pro-inflammatory pathways, such as, for example, sulforaphane from broccoli sprouts or moringa powder, or curcumin. Curcumin, for example, will tell the body to turn off NF-kappa B, so it doesn't stay in that pro-inflammatory state.
So most of these things I was already doing. So that's why it's so weird, because 1,000 milligrams of TUDCA, I was taking 6,000 milligrams of vitamin C, because it also helps to keep the pathways active when you're on a ketogenic diet, because it's so close to glucose. So you prevent the glucose intolerance, and that's something that the carnivore diet, I've known about this for years, but those carnivore guys, they exclude carbohydrates forever, right? And they all develop carbohydrate intolerance.
Well, maybe
they're adding in honey to prevent that, which they could have megadosed vitamin C and get the same response.
So that's what I meant earlier when I was saying maybe the carnivore diet, maybe there is a way that it could have harmed you. Maybe it could have made you something called glucose intolerant, whatever that is.
Right. Could be. Exactly. Yeah, it could be.
That's what I would. But when someone comes and says, like, what supplements should I use best for the liver, other than choline and bile salts, my opinion is basically there's like 30 or 40 supplements that can, really help the liver. There's a lot of
huge list here. Yeah.
That's a huge list. So it ends up being how much money do you have and how willing are you to swallow pills?
Both.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, yeah, I don't mind, man. I mean, I got a list here. I got choline and isolatol, and then on your recommendation, I ordered in the choline as well. So I'll run both.
So inositol is a really interesting compound. It's been shown to produce an antidepressant response in rodent studies.
It's mostly in the brain, I think.
Yeah, inositol is a second messenger system for serotonin. But also, there are these studies in the 70s and 60s that use the combination of choline and inositol to cause fat lipolysis at the liver. The mechanism by which inositol does this is completely, I mean, it's not clear. And they have not studied this, from what I've researched, in the last 40 or 30 years. I mean, nobody has talked about inositol for NAFLD in a long time. Right. So it seems to be that the people who have been formulating some of the supplement products have read these old studies from the 60s. And they just like, oh, choline and inositol. So I noticed that, but it's probably does work. I take inositol every day, but I'm not, I don't think it's like particularly, I don't.
No, so maybe it's through a secondary pathway, because if it promotes 5-HTP, then that increases mood and lowers appetite. So maybe it's just from making better dietary choices as a third step in the process.
5-HTP, on the other hand, not 5-HTP, but 5-HT. Serotonin itself is is oncogenic at the liver.
Oncogenic.
Meaning it causes the liver tumors to grow. Onco apparently means cancer, and oncogenic means liver tumors to grow. Actually, so really? 5-HT has some proliferative elements to it. It can cause growth in the body, and it does that to liver cancer cell lines. I don't know in reality, could it promote HCC? I don't know, but definitely cancer cell lines, it does that. But cancer cell lines are a little bit different than the real cancer cells, because they're like immortal. Like they take them out of a human body and they can keep them in a lab forever. So they're not normal cells. So you can't really trust the studies of them. Immortal cells.
Wow, that's crazy.
What's your plan going to be now going forward?
So I discussed on the video a little protocol, so that's 1,000 milligrams of NAC, and I wanted to add in the SAMe to increase glutathione content of the liver. Might as well, handle it from that pathway as well. I've been taking reduced glutathione now for about 3 months.
Doesn't work. Oral glutathione.
No, so I know.
Doesn't work.
Well,
I studied it a lot. I read every paper. It's not bioavailable.
I will say that my blood. I compared 1,000 milligrams of NAC to 2,000 milligrams of reduced glutathione, or 1,000 milligrams of 1,000 or 2,000 milligrams of reduced glutathione. My blood work was the same, so there was no change. But my skin color, I'm way paler now.
Oh yeah, the glutathione I guess if some of it was absorbed, it may have lightened.
I was looking at some of the videos on Instagram, and I'm like, I'm fucking transparent right now, And that was adding in the reduced glutathione, and of course, a side effect of injectable glutathione. So I do feel that it works, but I'm not sure how it compares to NAC. Well, I still got 2 bottles here, so I might as well run through it.
There's a few studies that compare NAC to reduced glutathione, and all found favorable with NAC. But if you see yourself getting paler, then I guess it does work.
Yeah, so I guess it does something. That's the only thing I noticed, which is probably not beneficial because everybody tells me to get a fucking tan.
Well, no, it's a trick to grainy muscles. Dorian Yates must have been using glutathione.
It's still grainy. Yeah, grainy enough.
So you're gonna use, but just for the audience to know, if anyone has problems with their methylation cycle, like I do naturally, I end up with high homocysteine. That's why I asked you about that. If you're like that, you don't want to be using SAMe because it will really mess up your methylation cycle.
Yeah, right. Yeah, no. So my homocysteine has always been on every blood test. It's not one of those that I test frequently. I usually do the C-reactive protein, but yeah, every time I did homocysteine, it was fine.
Yeah. I should mention there are some. There's one supplement which is somewhat unique in terms of its effects on the liver. It's called sodium butyrate, or just butyrate. It's a fatty acid called butyrate, which is attached to a sodium molecule.
Isn't it a ketone salt, or?
It's similar to it's like beta hydroxybutyrate. It's a small chain fatty acid, but sodium butyrate is an HDAC inhibitor. HDAC is called histone deacetylase, which is an enzyme that you remember you were mentioning earlier how your DNA changes according to your environment through epigenetics?
Yeah, the epigenetics, yeah.
HDAC is actually one of the ways your environment changes your genes. And there's a thing in your body called histone acetylation and deacetylation. So sodium butyrate inhibits deacetylation. So, for example, this is very helpful in some kind of cancers, it seems, where the cancer is taking control of your epigenetics and is changing your epigenetics to suit it. The sodium butyrate can undo that. Interestingly, sodium butyrate prominently improves inflammation at the liver as well. So I take sodium butyrate. Actually, I'm going to make a video on it soon. I think it's quite helpful. There's a version called tributylin, which is particularly powerful. And it's also helpful, I think, for people that are interested in colitis and Crohn's disease, because this is actually a fatty acid that is made by the microbiome, and it seems to promote microbiome health as well.
Okay, well, that's always good, you know.
Yeah. But so you're taking the SAMe, the NAC, and what else are you going to do?
Yeah, to reduce glutathione. So that's my glutathione stack. Let's see, betaine and apple cider vinegar, but that's probably just there to, you know, improve blood sugar levels, same as the metformin and the berberine.
Great. I think that's great.
Yeah, so I'm taking 1,000 milligrams of that per day now, while fasting. So fat loss is you know, pretty dramatic the last 3 days.
So metformin's metformin is thought of as an anti-diabetic drug, but really its main action is actually on the liver. It has tremendous effects on the liver. And in fact, the most prominent diseases that metformin protects against are the diseases that involve the liver. So it really reduces risk of different liver diseases.
Yeah, so I guess, you know, now it's time to add that in permanently and just run 500 milligrams per day when that is resolved. But let's see how that's going to affect my IGF-1 levels, you know, because I remember last time I ran metformin for 2 weeks, my IGF-1 came back at like 80. And that's what's running.
Maybe it's time for your IGF-1 levels to go down anyway. You have the muscle. You don't need that much IGF-1.
It's difficult, you know. You want to control all the variables, right? But it's, you know, I have to think from a long-term plan now. You know, at least I'll stay a little bit youthful in the face. You know, lower IGF, better youthful face, I guess.
No, so I've thought of programs for people where they can use metformin intermittently, like on weekend, or they take 2 days off, then they take metformin both of those days, for example. That's still enough to get some effect. And using ACAR, for example, for short periods, because ACAR is very fast acting and comes out very quickly.
Yeah, or maybe alternate, you know, between metformin and berberine.
Yeah,
you know, they have similar effects.
Well, berberine is very attractive also because berberine is a weak PCSK9 inhibitor, and PCSK9 inhibitors are the big new medication for cardiovascular disease. Like Repatha is one of those medications. They cost about $5,000 a year without insurance. Berberine is the only phytochemical the only herb that I know of that inhibits PCSK9.
Okay.
And it also inhibits acetylcholinesterase, which is an enzyme that breaks down acetylcholine in the brain. It's a very active drug.
Yeah, that's why I think I can't take Huperzine A, because I've been taking berberine 500 milligrams before bed for a while now. And then I take, you know, some of their supplements of Huperzine A. Yeah. And then I take it for like 2 weeks straight. And I get like a choline nightmare in my brain, which is very hard to describe. It's not a nightmare like you were sleeping, but you just feel off.
Yes. So basically,
you feel like rushed and you can't focus, and it's just choline saturation. So it's probably compounding with the berberine. Then I didn't know about that.
So what may be happening? Are you talking about at nighttime? You get dreams that
just the whole day. You just feel weird, and I don't even know how to describe it, because now I feel clear and focused. And I do take berberine, but I removed some of I don't take Huperzine A that frequently, so I limit it to 200 micrograms 3 times a week, and I'm fine. But if I take 200 to 400 micrograms every day, after 2 weeks, I get like choline saturation, and you feel really, really off.
So what may be happening, just to test it, the easiest way is to take ginkgo biloba. Ginkgo biloba is the most potent inhibitor of acetylcholinesterase, much more potent than berberine or the others. So combine ginkgo biloba with with berberine, and then if you don't get that effect in 2 weeks, then you know what it is actually is not Huperzine A's cholinergic effect, but it's NMDA receptor effect. Huperzine A is a potent blocker of the NMDA glutamate receptor in the brain, which is one of the main receptors involved with basically damage that goes on in the brain from too much excitability. So NMDA receptors, Huperzine A blocks that quite potently. And what blocks that very potently? PCP and ketamine, for example. So
my least favorite recreational drugs.
So that feeling you're getting may be actually the blocking of the NMDA receptors, which limits long-term potentiation and memory formation.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, it's always nice to talk to you. We always get to talk a bunch of stuff. This is very fun.
Yeah, right. And because the funny thing is, you know, it all overlaps, right?
Yeah.
Because your body, you throw in stuff and it's a soup of cells and entropy kind of determines what is going to happen. But everything is so related,
But what's nice about our hobby or career is that what we get to do is study something that directly influences our quality of life and our experience in life every day. Like everything you learn can impact your happiness, your health, your as opposed
to and not only ours but also other people, and that's why it's so enjoyable, because when I put that liver video out, you see it a lot. The whole comment section is like choline and ezetimibe. So that's great to see, because everybody's contributing in return. And then, they tell their stories how they had to fix the liver disease. So it's a very, with this stuff, like I was a little bit worried to put it out there. But now, now that you talk about it, it's really not a big deal. And it contributes, you're contributing to my resolvement of the fatty liver, but also the comment fields, are contributing. And then when I resolve it, I contribute to other people's ability to resolve it. So that's why it's such a fun experience to talk about and, see if we can fix it in 2 or 3 months.
No, I mean, think about it. Like most other careers, or even our former careers in consulting, a lot of stuff that's useless for you. You know a lot of stuff that helps your company, but can't really help you in your real life. But we
besides getting paid, besides getting a salary, And then the weird thing is what I was doing, I was getting other people fired, because they were getting replaced with a computer program. So that's not a good way to build up karma in your life.
That's true. Now, one thing, by the way, if you're taking the cholinergic berberine before you sleep, you may want to try Bacopa Monieri, because Bacopa does the same thing as berberine, but it also has some GABAergic effect. So it may help you sleep in a similar way to astragalus, but also enhance your dreaming. Now, this is the funny thing, okay? The more you increase choline, so this is the funny thing. So the more you increase GABA when you're trying to sleep, the less you have REM sleep, the more, the less you have, REM sleep, the more you have non-REM sleep. So you have deep sleep when you take GABA, like Xanax or astragalus, or not. It wasn't astragalus. What was it that you take for your pre-bed, the herb? Was it astragalus?
I got ashwagandha.
Ashwagandha, yeah. So ashwagandha increases GABA. All these things that increase GABA, they tend to increase deep sleep, but reduce dream sleep. On the other hand, the opposite effect happens with cholinergic drugs. So all of these, like berberine, huperzine A, ginkgo biloba, alpha GPC, if you take these right before you sleep, you have more dream sleep, more vivid dreams, lucid dreams, but you have less dream sleep.
Okay.
So it's a balancing act between the two. And when you increase melatonin, you get more dream sleep also, and less.
So deep REM sleep is going to result in higher growth hormone levels, right?
I'm not sure where. I can't remember where hormone is released.
I think it's the deep REM sleep around 2 or 3 o'clock that you get your growth hormone pulse when you're completely sedated.
It is 2 or 3 o'clock, or 1 to 3 o'clock. But I think you're right. I think it's in the deep non-REM sleep. Non-REM, so not deep, not dream though. I thought it
was deep REM sleep.
It might. No, there's no deep REM. REM is just REM, but non-REM has the 4 stages.
Yeah, you got all 4 stages, right? Yeah. Okay.
So basically, the more you increase GABA, the more you increase GABA, the more you can dream less, and then the more you increase cholinergic things, the more you dream more, and there's a give and take between the two. I've been discovering this on myself recently.
Yeah, because I've been barely dreaming for the last couple of years, especially since I took out the trenbolone and all that stuff. I barely dream, but I wake up rested every day, or I can't remember. I have maybe a dream per week.
I can change that. We can definitely change that.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
You won't have to
mind. I wake up and I feel relaxed. Not that I've been, because being self-employed, you work up to 9 o'clock in the evening. In the years, and then you continue to dream about the stuff you've been doing. And so that's something that I don't want, because I need to relax.
Do you intoxicate at all? Do you use alcohol, or you don't use alcohol?
2 times this year.
So you don't. I wonder why. Maybe you're just not remembering them. But I wonder if you did.
I'm probably not remembering them because I wake up so rested every day. So my sleep stack is 5-HTP, ashwagandha, sometimes GABA, but most of the time I don't. And then melatonin.
By the way, the reason you're taking GABA to go to sleep, you can actually take, because GABA doesn't cross the blood-brain barrier supposedly, but it agonizes apparently peripheral GABA receptors, which somehow.
I think it does, but it's the relaxing hormone, right?
Yeah, but the problem is GABA doesn't. I mean, for the last 20 or 30 years, people have thought that GABA doesn't cross the blood-brain barrier. But people like us have noticed if you take GABA supplements, you get more relaxed and you feel, so how can it not cross the blood-brain barrier? It doesn't make sense, right? But there is actually, I found recently in the last 2 weeks, actually, I found a medication. It's GABA plus one of the B vitamins. I think.
As a cofactor.
Yeah, no, it's the molecules combined together so that your body digests it, separates the niacin from the GABA, and then you have GABA and niacin in your brain together.
All right, so you get a little bit of cholesterol management as well.
In your brain, well, you get some fake cholesterol management because there's no impact on outcomes apparently, but you can.
I took that for like 3 months straight. The flush niacin, 1,000 milligrams before bed, and then GABA gives you some paresthesia as well, like the little bit of a flushing and tingling, and you just sit there, and in the middle of having fun with your wife, you start turning into a fucking tomato.
Speaking of cholesterol, you don't take a statin, do you?
No, I take citrus bergamot, and it keeps everything in range. And I have a very high poly and monounsaturated fat diet and very high omega-3. I take like 30, 40, 50 grams of omega-3 per day from fish and fish oil supplements and chia seeds. Yeah, it's very high.
50 of omega-3 a day? Oh, wow. You're like the original omega-3 studies. The original fish oil studies, they use like 30.
Yeah, maybe that contributed to my fatty liver disease. I'm not sure.
That could be. Who knows? That's a lot of fish oil.
Yeah, no, it's not a lot of fish oil. It's just, my diet is fish, and then I have a little bit of walnuts, which are high in omega-3, and then all the chia seeds that I add to each meal. That's a lot of omega-3 too, but it's not EPA and DHA.
Yeah, not EPA and DHA. You mean
no? So it's I think it's maybe 5,000 milligrams of EPA and DHA.
Yeah, that's what I take about it.
Yeah, so that's the normal anti-inflammatory and blood thinning and insulin sensitizing and overall health stack, and then the rest is just same as you have polyunsaturated fat. You have omega-3 fat that's not EPA and DHA yet, and you still need to use the enzymes or the converting enzymes to convert that into usable EPA for health.
So previously, historically, I've been using a statin called pitavastatin, which is also called Livalo. The reason I've been using it is it's not been associated with the major side effect of statin use, which is diabetes. But I was just going to let you know, I started trying rosuvastatin recently because it doesn't cross the blood-brain barrier. I realized that even though I was taking very low amounts of pitavastatin and rarely, it was crossing the blood-brain barrier and causing me brain fog. So I switched to rosuvastatin, which is much more powerful, but causes far less brain fog. And by the way, so what's my argument with like not trusting things like citrus bergamot, which I also take every day, of course. Anything that's going to improve my values well and comes from a plant that seems, useful, I would take. Like I'm not going to take niacin because the flushing is painful, and clearly there's no outcome on mortality. Like
so if it worked, I would take it. But after a while running it, you don't see any benefits. Why take it? It's the same way why I took that choline and isonator, spending all this money on supplements, and you don't see any immediate benefits. But it's probably one of those sleeper supplements that you take for several years. And then you're like, oh, I'm still healthy. Like astragalus, for example, it doesn't do anything, but it's like one of those long-term supplements that might help with kidney health and potentially prevent the shortening of telomeres.
With what were you talking about? Which
astragalus? I saw some studies that might reduce the shortening of telomeres.
If you don't want your telomeres to shorten, as I found out like 4 days ago, to my utter shock, you can just take Winstrol, which will increase telomerase activity at the liver.
Let me go into my medicine tablet cabinet.
I had no idea. So can you imagine that? Winstrol actually increases telomerase activity at the liver and other sites of stress in the organs. So when your telomeres are longer, what happens?
I'm tempted right now.
No, it's not a good thing. It's not a good thing because when your telomeres are longer, your cells can divide quicker. And when your cells have accrued mutagenic damage over time, they can divide and create a tumor. So
of course. So when you have a cancer or a tumor, it's not a good idea. But when you're taking growth hormone and IGF-1 is elevated for cell proliferation, it might be a good thing because you're speeding up the shortening of telomeres by taking growth hormone and IGF-1. Because the cell division increases.
You're speeding up the end of the cell division cycle, which involves telomeres, of course. But you can also like just shorten telomeres without even causing cell division, which is a different issue. That can come from damage.
Oh, really?
Like smoking causes
oxidative stress. The reactive species, breaks apart. But it can also happen in the middle of the DNA, right?
Yes, but it can happen at the telomere as well. Yeah. Okay, well, if I don't end this call, it'll keep going on because we have so many things to talk about. So we'll text. You keep me updated. But listen, I got to tell you, though, honestly, I wouldn't take it as seriously as you're taking it because, like, in terms of the oxidative stress and stuff like that, I think you're going to cure it so fast with just a couple of days of fasting cycle. The goal then is just to figure out how to avoid getting it back, really.
Yeah, that's probably going to be lifestyle and just making sure that I stay on top of my choline intake. And then vitamin E and all that stuff. But most of the stuff that, promotes liver health, I was already doing. So it could be a choline deficiency. And I know it could be the saturated fat or the drugs that you're taking. I did run Anivard, like a low dose for months.
Really?
Yeah, 5 milligrams, 10 milligrams per day.
Well, how do you like that? I was never that.
Awesome.
Really, huh?
Yeah. Because it creates mind-muscle connection and collagen synthesis. Yes. So you help with connective tissue and then skin texture and that kind of stuff. Of course, if you have cirrhosis of the liver, then the collagen synthesis is sped up significantly as well.
Good point. That's something many people don't bring up about when we talk about steroids increasing collagen synthesis. This means fibrosis also. Fibrosis at your heart, at your liver, at your kidneys, your testicles.
It's all systemic, man. You don't get to choose.
Exactly.
You take it and you think, oh, my joints and tendons feel so great, and I look, healthy. And then you're also promoting collagen synthesis in other parts of the body. So there's always a win and a lose in taking these performance enhancing drugs.
But really, I think fatty livers are very common in bodybuilding. And I think if you start to pay attention to people this is how you look at it, by the way. The rib cage is like this from the front. If you see just under the rib cage, a bulge within 1 inch or so here and on one side, then that's a fatty liver. So for example, you can look at Greg Doucette's, any of his videos, you'll find whenever Greg is off, like he's on camera, but they're not paying attention. If he's doing an exercise or anything, you'll see his liver is very distended. I noticed that many times I noticed that, and I was like, this is really interesting because
I can't watch it, so it's
you can. No, by the way, I stopped watching that channel. I stopped.
It's too hyper for me,
No, I learned what I could learn, but I can't do that to myself. I don't know who's watching
too much.
Exactly.
Anyway, just people that like drama, I guess. That's a large portion of people. That's why the news network, it's all opinion now and no longer facts.
I don't think that, Steve. I've never spoken to anyone. Like anyone watches my channel that still watches. I mean, most people are like they used to watch it and they don't anymore. So I think that the channel are 14-year-olds.
Same with Tony Huge. I get so many messages. Like I know through you through Tony Huge, but we went to Dubai and Kuwait and we did a lot of videos together, and they no longer follow Tony because it's all it's aimed towards teenagers.
Yeah.
And then they follow me because it's I seem a little bit more knowledgeable in my approach. No, I still get tagged, So I listen to Craig Doucette and Derek and Leo and Steve. So just leave that first guy out. And then Derek and Leo and Steve and maybe some of the other bodybuilding coaches like John Meadows and Scott Stevenson. All those guys are very knowledgeable and helpful when it comes to bodybuilding and health. And that's the good guys to listen to. And Greg, if you're watching, I don't hate you.
No, Greg will not respond to you. Don't worry.
It just it's not my kind of content, And I got limited time of the day, so I prefer not somebody screaming at me about somebody's cycle.
Well, I'm sure he's a nice guy and he's an intelligent guy, and he's not like that in real life.
I think Derek talks to him because they fall under the same tax bracket because we're both Canadian, right? So I think they have some conversation, and he said, it's just for TV.
Really?
And he seems like a super nice guy in real life, and I'm sure because when you watch his older videos. When he did that Vice interview, or like a little skit, I think that's where he got his popularity from. It's like a 40-year-old bodybuilder returns to the stage. It's like a little 30-minute segment. And he seemed like a super cool guy. And then his early videos as well. I think he plays into what the audience wants. They want the screaming lunatic talking about this is wrong and this this bullshit and, it's calling people out. And, that's why Kenny KO and all those guys are very popular. I don't blame them. It's just not my kind of content.
Yeah, because there's some approach to managing a YouTube channel where it's a style of managing the channel where if you see a video do well, you just keep making that video. Like once you see a video is done better than your other videos, you stay on that track. I have been ignoring this. I keep just doing boring videos because I think they're useful,
Well, yeah, because I want to contribute and give back to the industry. And I noticed that all the people that sign up for coaching or doing consultations, they're not watching the steroid videos. They're watching, silly videos like financial or mindset or training and maybe a little bit of the PDs. But the people that decide to work with me for coaching or consultations or the private, personalized email, those are the different kind of audience. And then that's where I get my revenue from and not from YouTube. Unless I really go balls deep into the YouTube algorithm and start promoting that kind of content, because you can make $10,000 from YouTube alone if you want to.
Well, apparently you can make a lot of money coaching, much more than I realized. Apparently.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Why do you think I didn't post any videos last month?
Yeah, people can make a lot of money.
I've got 8,000 subscribers, which is nothing. And I just get coaching requests and coaching requests and coaching requests.
That's great.
It never stops. And the consultations too. And even private, like I was doing the private Facebook group, right? And I'm not accepting any new members anymore because I feel it's not successful. So everybody that's on a membership there, they'll still be there so I can help them privately. And then I launched a personalized email advice for $100 per email with one follow-up email. And then within 1 month, it doubled what I was making with the private Facebook group.
Wow, that's great.
It was significantly less work.
I've been getting those emails since we last spoke. I told you I wasn't getting them, but I've been getting them also, those email requests.
Yeah, you just got to announce, and I don't even announce it. I just, I got it on my website now. I get like 2 per day.
Wow, that's great. Yeah.
Yes. So that's why I'm, people always tell me, hey, you got to give back and grow your channel and this and that. I said, I can't handle any more work.
No, but apparently there are people making $500,000 just from coaching without any other income.
Yeah, I can see it.
Yeah, I was so surprised. Yeah, 2 people confirmed this to me recently.
Yeah. So you're not really hands-on anymore when you're doing that amount of coaching, because people say they have 200 clients. I can't. The workload would be incredibly high. I can only.
No, apparently they're cookie cutter. Yeah, cookie cutter.
Yeah, they're cookie cutter stuff, and I don't do that at all. Everything is personalized with me. My diets are extensive. My Excel sheet is this wide because it covers all the amino acids and the carbohydrates and the fatty acids and then all the micronutrients. So it's like 100 columns wide.
One final question. Do you get like the client?
I got another hour, man. We don't have to cut it off. Yeah, I reserved 2 hours for you, and it's always fun. So we can go another hour, no problem.
But one final question I was going to ask you: Do clients frequently send you other coaches' programs?
Sometimes, yeah.
Without you asking, I have a bunch of coaches' programs without asking for it. So I keep getting coaches' programs. They think that I want them. Yeah, I don't really care.
I don't really care because, everybody's got their own strategy, right? Even when you get the program, you don't get the full reasoning behind doing certain things.
Yeah.
And that's more important to me than just looking at a piece of paper and seeing a drug stack and the diet stack,
Yesterday, I think I received over 50 programs of one of the famous coaches without asking for
it. I know which guy.
Oh, you got it too? Did you get it too?
No. It's probably from Boston, right? Boston.
No, it wasn't from him. No, but that's a smart way of thinking about it. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, because I know he's got all the programs as well.
Yeah, that's a smart guess. But no, it wasn't.
That wasn't him. Okay. No, I didn't get that. But it's I've talked with a lot of clients that worked with more famous coaches or bodybuilders that work with more famous coaches, and they're very open about it because they're looking for a little bit of advice from me as well. And it all makes sense. Although sometimes it's a little bit excessive, but then again, it's pro bodybuilding, and people are not meant to be 300 pounds on stage,
Yeah, of course. And and I think people forward things along thinking that literally the coach's value is on the paper, which is not possible.
No, it's the adjustments.
Yeah, the adjustments, as well as you genuinely may not give the same things to different people. I mean, they may be different things. even in terms of supplements, I wouldn't give the same supplement to. Sometimes people are like, they text me and they're like, "What's your full supplement program?" Or they want the secret code, but like you're not going to take the same stuff if you have different issues.
They do. I put my year-round supplement stack for health on my website, and I posted that on Instagram years ago, and people just copy it.
Yeah, people are just like, he probably knows what he's doing.
So now what I do is I add in my iHerb discount code for 5%. So they use my discount code and I get a kickback on each order.
How much is the Amazon kickback? Do you know how is it?
No, I don't have an Amazon kickback because I applied for the affiliate program, but it got disproved 2 times or not approved 2 times. So
really,
because I'm not in the United States, maybe that's the issue.
Maybe
that's, or I'm talking about I give my website and my Instagram and they say, oh, well, you don't qualify.
Too many steroid videos.
Yeah, too many steroid videos. Yeah. So,
all right. Well,
I mean, iHerb paid me like $2,500.
Really? I need to check it out. Although,
anybody can get this 5% discount code,
But do they carry a bunch of supplement companies?
They carry Now and Gero Formulas, and they carry everything besides the Tetka.
Oh, great. Okay.
And they ship worldwide, and the shipping is affordable. It's cheaper than bodybuilding.com or from Amazon. I can't order anything. Then I have to use a shipping forwarder like shipito.com, and they send it to Nevada, and then from Nevada they send it to Thailand. But man, it's like $60 shipping right now with because of COVID. Yeah, Derek spends on DHL Priority like $60 per package just to send me supplements. I'm probably the only person outside of the US that gets his supplements. Yeah, because he doesn't have international shipping because they were having so much issues with non-deliveries. And then refunds requests, and it's a lot of extra work. So I don't blame them. Yeah,
the shipping costs are different there. What's he sending? Are you mostly taking the nootropics or the health?
No, all of it. I got this whole product line. I got Alpha Yohimba and Revulsion. That just arrived. I got his pre-workout and his post-workout and essential amino acids and glycerol, which I was really excited to try, but it got stuck in customs, so I had to wait 3 weeks. The nootropics, and the pre-workout stuff. So I got the whole product line, even some of the men's cosmetics.
Oh yeah, he has those too.
Yeah, a couple. He's got a whole line of cosmetics. Derek just got his fingers in everything, man. Just like me.
Like that, yeah. He deserves it.
So you get like 10 different revenue streams, which is an insane amount of work to manage, but you're all making a little bit. And if one of them drops off, you're not making much. You don't worry because you have so many other revenue streams going in.
It really makes sense. Yeah, hopefully we'll get him on the podcast soon, but it's definitely a great pleasure talking to him. We come up with interesting ideas. Like just today, I sent him an email. I found out that also this is related to Winstrol. I found out that Winstrol was blocking the rate limiting step in the synthesis of neurosteroids in the brain, which is called the TSPO receptor. It's called the translocator protein, which used to be called the peripheral benzodiazepine receptor. Anyway, this receptor, its agonism is the rate-limiting step in the synthesis of DHEA and pregnenolone in the brain and things like that. So actually, some steroids block that, which I was really surprised. And Winstrol is one of them. Yeah.
Well, it doesn't surprise me because I since I talked about DHEA and pregnenolone, and people started doing the blood work, and I realized that it's at the middle bottom of the reference range. Apparently, you don't need luteinizing hormone to release it, but if it lowers because of certain steroids, it doesn't surprise me because it's the same as taking exogenous testosterone, reducing testosterone production. It's through a different pathway, of course.
Another thing that Derek and I actually been talking about, which I thought I may mention to you also. So I'm sure you have some clients who are on steroids or on TRT, and one of the things I noticed is that men, a lot of their progesterone synthesis comes from their gonads. So when you take TRT or steroids, you cut that progesterone synthesis off.
I add in the pregnenolone.
You can add in the pregnenolone, but the pregnenolone works in the exact opposite function as progesterone in the brain. Pregnenolone actually, for example, progesterone is an antagonist of the sigma-1 receptors, whereas pregnenolone is a potent agonist. So is DHEA. Yeah. Basically, the main issue with progesterone is that the more progesterone you have, the more allopregnanolone you will synthesize from progesterone. So, and allopregnanolone is a potent modulator of the GABA, like Xanax. So think of allopregnanolone like Xanax plus like it also has a sexual effect. But anyway, so basically, if you have less progesterone in your body, you have less GABA modulation. So you'll be a bit on edge.
Yeah.
So basically, someone taking TRT that's not taking, or steroids, that's not taking a steroid that agonizes progesterone receptors like Deca or Ment or Trembolone, if they're not taking something like that, then they should also replace progesterone. I did a bunch of calculations and I realized that men are producing naturally about 8 milligrams of oral micronized progesterone twice per day. And if you want to make it into a twice a day,
that's still pretty high.
Yeah, I know, because it's not very bioavailable. So it's like 3 milligrams. I did all the calculations. So it's about 8 milligrams twice per day is what a normal person would produce. So now the interesting thing is this: estrogen doesn't increase skeletal muscle synthesis, but progesterone does. Yeah. Progesterone does. So in women, so there's a reason to increase progesterone past the physiologic level. So maybe you want to experiment with some people to see oral micronized progesterone, which isn't very well absorbed orally, but maybe you could try 10 milligrams twice a day as a base, and then some people can go up. So I have some people right now who are going quite high in the hundreds of milligrams, and they're experiencing dramatic anxiolysis, like a relaxation, like a Xanax, as well as
sex drive.
Increased sex drive, tremendously increased sex drive. And also one of the secrets, which I'm actually having Big Lenny do, we were just talking about this today, is you take some progesterone right before you take Phenibut or your 1,4-butanediol or drug to produce a crazy sexual drive. It will enhance the effect of Phenibut on sex drive. So if you want to have a nice night,
I would expect more relaxation, but I guess it's a sex drive benefit.
It will do both, because Phenibut affects the sex drive via the GABA B receptors. Well, we think it's via GABA B. It's not completely clear, but they definitely increase the synthesis of allopregnanolone, which has some sex drive effect. I mean, not GABA B. Actually, that's a mistake. I don't know how it's doing it exactly, but anyway. So the point is, you could take progesterone at as low as 10 milligrams and go higher for anxiolysis and sex drive and potentially more skeletal muscle synthesis.
That's one of the reasons why I did that short-term ACG blast to restore libido, because a lot of guys have poor libido on cycle, right? So they're DHEA, pregnenolone, and progesterone, and they're estrone, and the whole balance is off because they only have high test and perhaps high estrogen, but all those other hormones like progesterone, DHEA, and pregnenolone are all low, or not in the correct ratio to the other steroids that you're taking. So you add in the ACG, which brings everything back to favorable ranges, and then the DHEA and pregnenolone maintains it, because pregnenolone can convert into progesterone, and you see it's within the reference range on blood work.
Now the unfortunate thing is that this market for the synthesis for the conversion of steroids in the body is not efficient, meaning that
I know it's you don't get to choose how much it converts.
No, well, not efficient as in you may, like, for example, take pregnenolone orally and it may not go through the whole cascade. It may convert into pregnenolone sulfate and stay there as the sulfate. So it's not always clear. But the only drawback to taking progesterone, I should just mention, is that it will upregulate estrogen receptors in the body. So it'll make you more sensitive to estrogen's effects from.
That's where gynecomastia comes from.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's like, I think that's the reason for the potent and weird gynecomastia that comes from like Anadrol for some people.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, you were taking Anadrol, I forgot to mention, and you were taking a retinoid. You were taking, not Retin-A, but the actual pill for your pimples. What's it called?
Accutane, yeah.
We'll take Accutane. That, by the way, could be the stress for your liver.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah, so unfortunately, I'm still considering if I'm going to run like a short-term dose of 50 milligrams per day and just clear the acne forever. Because I talked with the lifting dermatologist, and he just said, well, it has a compounding effect on acne. So if you take 10 milligrams 3 times per week, it's not going to do anything for your acne. It's not going to prevent it long term, but it's just preventing it short term by keeping a low dose. And I might have to run 50 milligrams per day just to kill the acne formation. But of course, now that I have fatty liver disease, I took it out. It's just another supplement that contributes to liver stress, right? So I got one here already.
Oh, yeah. Well, anyway, we covered I think this was a good podcast. We covered quite a bit for one session. I really look forward to having you back on again. I really always enjoy speaking to you.
Yeah,
But
for sure, man. Thanks.
one thing we didn't talk about, you sent me a text like a month ago about that documentary about the social.
Oh, yeah. Well, let's go into that. It was very interesting.
What did you think about that?
So it's very, with the algorithm, they try to keep you hooked, right? And I've been noticing that for years where they, it's loading and it's got some sort of loading screen that's the same as you have when you go to, the slot machine at the casino. It's spinning and spinning and it creates anticipation. And then when it hits, you're like either happy or sad, right? And it's the same with, Facebook has been doing that for years. When it's loading the screen, you see that loading screen, which looks like it's going to load, but it's completely just a prosthetic, basically. It's a simulation. And then you get, your latest feed updates from all your friends or the people that you follow. So I noticed that years ago, and it makes sense with the algorithm that it's only going to give you news that you want to hear because that's what's going to keep you hooked. And then in the meantime, they showed ads, which now it's all about ads, right? On Instagram and Facebook and YouTube as well. Just ads. Luckily, we can make money that way a little bit. Not that it's a lot, but you can make a little bit of money on YouTube that way. And that's how Facebook and Instagram make money for themselves by using your content. And then they only show you content that you're interested in to keep you on the social media platform. So if you're liberal, you're only going to see liberal messages. And if you're conservative, you're only going to see conservative messages. And then you don't understand opposite sides anymore because all you get is customized news or customized updates, customized text to keep you hooked to the machine. And it makes complete sense.
Yeah, it really struck me. By the way, I only watched that video because of you. So I was not going to watch it, but I was like, okay. Vigorous Steve has never advised me to watch a movie before. So I think I should listen to his advice.
I know about our issue with the comments field. So I figured you would find out.
So I watched it and I was really impressed. Actually some of it is actually covers like a subject that I was specialized in graduate school. It's called choice architecture. Choice architecture is the elements of a decision that are not important to your decision making. Like if logically they're not important, but they enter into your brain and your decision making without you realizing it and influence you. So, for example,
the Inception. That's basically Inception, the movie. They're changing your subconscious behavior, and that's how marketing and commerce works. That. They don't even tell you to buy the product. They just, if you want to belong in this industry, you need to have it. So that's why everybody's wearing Gymshark. Yeah. Because it's part of the thing. You don't even think about it.
The biggest takeaway I got from it, which really struck me, I mean, I don't know, just hit a chord with me, is that we're not evolved or adapted to function in this arena and this sphere. Yeah. Like what really struck me was when they said we're not evolved to account for the negative views of hundreds of people toward ourselves, because that did not happen in the entirety of our history. Because you know what I mean? So that really struck me. I was like, that's completely true, because so even just a few hours before I spoke to you, I got some negative comment. Like it was crazy. It was like I was so shocked. I was like, this is speak of the devil. I'm speaking to Steve today, and I'm going to tell him about this comment. So I got a comment like, this guy commented on an interview I do with Jerry Ward, that's BioS3 training, on my channel. His comment was, "This is a new low for this channel." I was like, "What? I don't even know you. I've never seen your name on my channel before." Yeah. What are the lows that are happening on my channel? But even though I knew it was a ridiculous comment, some element of it messed with my mood.
Yeah, no, I know, because it's you're putting so much effort into these interviews and editing and uploading them and making sure you get clients and
it's a new low.
Why? I mean, Jerry Ward, I used to follow the guy when he first got started on YouTube, and it was valuable information. I mean, he changed his attitude a little bit, so I don't follow it. But everybody gets to make a choice. You choose to follow a person for a while, and then when you no longer have interest, okay, you unsubscribe and you move on. No hard feelings unless you dislike all the fucking videos after that.
Yeah, exactly.
Then you're just a scumbag. Just don't watch, unsubscribe, beat it. Go watch something else. Go to the YouTube trending field and then watch, transsexuals put makeup on. There's something for everybody. There's something for everybody. You don't have to follow this but Jerry Ward, I mean, it's just another guy you interview, and he has interesting videos. I watched it. He was an.
But it's like I'm not very intelligent, but I'm not stupid. Okay, I'm capable. I'm rational. I have a master's degree. And I read this message, and it makes no sense. But still, I'm like, oh, that it feels bad. You feel a little bit bad, and it's because we're not evolved to deal with that. We just have we've never had to face this before.
No, I know. Maybe you have it in real life, right? And the guy calls you an asshole. Okay, you go outside and you settle it.
Yeah, no, that would never happen because these people don't.
Not anymore. No, not anymore, because people they throw all their negativity out on the internet, and then they meet in real life, and they're like, "Hey, what's up?" And then there's this two-faced behavior, And like if I don't
that makes so much sense. What all of this passive aggression and overly nice people, it's all because they're online insulting people online.
Yeah, they get it out of the door, but they tell negative stuff to you, and then because sometimes you meet people, right? They comment on Instagram, and you're outside and you meet them. Well, luckily in Thailand now the borders are closed, so you don't get so many fans. Like, hey Steve, let's train together and do this and do that. And I'm sorry, I don't have time, but let's take a picture. But always in the back of my head, it's like, is this the same guy that posts shit on my Instagram or start questioning everything I'm doing with a little sentence? That's not true. What? I don't get it. I don't get it. But I think when you're self-employed and you can schedule your own day, you make your own money, and then you can afford all the things you want to buy, for health or whatever your priorities is. I think your outlook in life changes a lot.
Well, and also the opposite also changes your outlook, because in one of my interviews recently, someone commented, the reason I troll is because I get upset seeing people do what they love for a living online. So I get upset. So I just, because he said, because I hate my job. Yeah.
Success is very offensive. And success, that's why people get haters, because if you get successful, it's just offensive to people. And I even notice that around me, you do better and better and better, you get more respect, and then other people hate you for it. And it's the same on Instagram, and it's the same on the YouTube comment fields. It's just people hate you for no reason. So I hit the block button and they're out, and then they have to go through the effort to make another account because they can't stop hating. Can't stop hating. You're just gonna make another account and then troll you again. You block them again and make another account. And every time they have to put in the phone number, so I make it a little bit difficult for them to get another verified account. And it's just a repetitive process. But
you have a very healthy outlook, though. You have a healthy outlook. I hate
it. Sometimes it ruins my day too. Like I made a video about something, and then they posted that in the TRT and optimization group, which is like 20,000 people. It's Stephen DeVos little group, right? And people started just talking bullshit. They didn't even watch the video. And then 5 of my clients were also part of the group. They started sending me screenshots. All these people are talking trash, So I do the stupid thing, start reading it, and then you almost feel obligated to reply. And I realized that, no, this is completely beneath me.
Yeah, when you start typing it, that's when you have to exit. You have to wait a minute.
I was like, I got my finger on the FU, and then so I made I had fuck you almost written, and then I the backspace, and I exited the conversation before even getting started, because honestly, it's beneath me.
Yeah,
really, and it sounds very, very arrogant when I say that, but people are not the same, man. I hate to say it, but people are not equal. There's different grades in intelligence, and there's different grades in social status, and you can easily tell by looking at a person's partner, because that's the people that they're with all the time. So when I go into somebody's profile, they talk shit, I go into their profile and I see a completely degenerative woman, it completely devaluates that. Yeah, because if you're with a degenerate woman, and sorry, I have to put it like this, it's very straightforward, but I'm Dutch, and this culture is still embedded in me. But if I see somebody that's with a partner that just by a picture, it's very shallow, but sorry, you see a picture and it's like, okay, this is a complete redneck, or just bottom class people. Just devalues it. It doesn't. The message doesn't hold any more value or merit.
There's the 2 things you said that are really true. One thing is you can tell a lot about a person by the person that their spouse, right? But the second thing also is that it takes an amount of intelligence to recognize intelligence. So
Yeah.
that's how sometimes people attracts like. So if you are an intellectual person, then someone who's very stupid won't even realize you're intellectual. They just think you like weird words. But somebody who is intellectual will notice and say, "Oh, I like the way this guy thinks. I want to hang out with him." Yeah. So sometimes you'll get stupid people.
The more intellectual you get, the less people you get to share it with.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's why I always say, intelligence is a curse, because you get lonelier and lonelier and lonelier. And I had a conversation with Derek also and a couple other YouTubers, is that it's very lonely at the top. Yeah. And I'm not that I'm saying that I'm at the top, but you get further and further away from the general audience, and you can teach them something new, and then enrich their knowledge base. But it means that, the knowledge gap is so high that an entry-level follower, subscriber, or it might be so overwhelming to them that the little bubble that they live in, or the knowledge base that they have, and you're so far outside of it that they can't even recognize it. And then they say, "No, it's fucking bullshit."
Well,
protein, calories in, calories out.
Thank you, Steve. This is great, because now you've given me excuse for why my channel is only 4,000 people. It's because it's too complicated.
It's too complicated. I know. I watch your videos and not so much of the interviews, because the interviews are always the interviews are not so in depth, right? Maybe the ones we do, and a couple with the other, like Dr. Dean St. Martin was a great interview.
Yeah,
but it didn't get a lot of views, because it's not in depth. It's too in depth.
That's true. Yeah. Oh, you made me feel great about myself, Steve. I really appreciate it.
Well, I try. I try. I know how it feels, man. You put so much effort into a YouTube video, 500 views.
Yeah, man, that's crazy. It's really. But anyway, you have to have the motivation, because when you have a vision for what it can be, you just have to trudge along until people start to take notice. And
I give every business venture a year, so it's until 2021 April that I'm gonna give it a try. Just like with the Facebook group, right? I gave it a year, and then I look at the revenue stream and the time investment, and maybe it's not worth my time. So, and I've done so many things for business wise that didn't play out. The coaching is still here. I've been doing it for 8 years now, and so that has always been successful.
The way I see it about failure, is that if you don't fail in life, then you're not actually ever trying to do something that you can't do. In which case, that means you're not even pushing yourself unless you fail. So actually, failure in a way is like a good sign, because it tells you you're trying to do more than you can, which means eventually you're going to get better and be able to do more than you can.
You're just raising the bar, right? And it's, the Facebook group was good because I wrote so much content, which is still valid as ebooks, that I'm transforming that now and make the entry level a little bit smaller. But if you buy all the ebooks, you probably spend $2,000, to get the same amount of content as a Facebook group. But it's so weird, this space. Like, if you start increasing your rate, you get more business. And all the lazy
people, or decreasing?
Increasing, you get more business.
What I noticed is that there seems to be like a sweet spot between 300 to 600 a month, or 300 to 500 a month of coaching price.
Yeah, so that's where I'm at now. Yeah.
No, because some people charge very high.
Yeah, and I don't think that I know anything more than I do, or you do. But it's just the fame, and then you can ask for $1,000 a month. But you no longer coach bodybuilders then. You coach celebrities.
I think they also get less money because it seems like they price themselves out of a lot of clients. So it seems
they price themselves out of the fitness industry.
Yeah,
I completely understand that, because like I coach mostly recreational full-time bodybuilders. So they love the sport, they don't compete, they want to stay healthy, they want to use a little bit of drugs but stay on top of their health. So I think 40 of my clients are recreational male bodybuilders. I've got 5 to 6 women and a couple competitors, because this year, due to COVID, there's no shows, right? So I got a couple guys in contest prep now, and fingers crossed all the shows won't be canceled. But most of the consultations are not bodybuilders. And if they are bodybuilders, it's the guys that messed with their health. Their libido is crashed, or they got, terrible blood work, or that kind of stuff. But I never get consultations anymore just to design a cycle. When I was doing $100 per consultation, I did. Can you design a cycle for me? Yeah, sure. Yeah, pay me and we'll go over it in an hour. But now I only get reactive health consultations.
Yeah, that's what I get too. That's a consultation.
So no more proactive. But that's going to be with the ebooks, and then hopefully with a $10, $20, maybe $50 entry fee, it will sell. And
I'm in the process of writing, or not writing, but collecting the research for my book also. It's going quite well, but I don't know if it'll be.
You see how much time it costs, right? And then every time you think you're finished, then you need to add something. So that's why I've been procrastinated for the last month to release them, because you do more research, and then a week later, I realized I forgot this.
Which one are you going to start with?
I got a PCT ebook, bioidentical hormones for the off season. So it's just FGH, insulin, IGF-1, DHA, pregnenolone. How to run that all in the correct ratios with diet adjustments. Estrogen, progesterone, and prolactin. 75 fucking pages, man.
Oh, yeah, that you can talk a lot about that for sure.
Yeah, growth hormone and IGF-1 separately, so that's more in depth in the bioidentical hormone cycle, and just a hormone replacement therapy ebook. Yeah, so that's the entry, and then I'll do all the PED profiles. So that's Trembolone article, $5, and then with all the protocols and then combining them with other steroids, and then a Masteron and a Primavol and a Anavar, and then let's see how that sells, and then I'll do the organ health after that. So an article about kidneys in relation to steroids, and then liver in relation to steroids, and fasting in relation to blood work.
Are you concerned about people copying the ebooks and just sending them?
Yeah.
Because people have done that to Greg Doucette. They posted his.
No, they sent me all his ebooks, and I told him, dude, I'm not going to read it because I didn't pay for it. I didn't. Yeah, and I wouldn't buy it.
So I'm not going to read it either. Yeah, I won't buy it, and I won't.
I did scroll over it a little bit, and then I realized, the process food. I was like, okay, never mind. People, this is so. I'll see with the 5 ebooks that I'm going to release. If people start plagiarizing that. But I had the same issue in the Facebook group. People from Vietnam, India, an Arab country, they just went in and started translating everything.
No, the Arabs didn't. The Arabs were not involved. We weren't doing anything, No,
it was. Is Persian considered Arab?
No. That's a good way out. That's the perfect way out. Anyway.
Perfect way out. So I'm sorry, Iran, but it was one of the Iranians. So they started posting everything, and you just see the structure of your own document, because some of the words they don't get translated, or the number. You just wrote it, and then a day later it's public in another language. Motherfucker, And I just throw them out, and I said, this is not. I have it in the rules and regulations of the Facebook group. So if you copy the shit, make it public, you're out, and I keep your money.
Yeah.
And even one of my clients did that, and they just threw him out and kept all his coaching money. So it's for plagiarism. Good luck picking up with PayPal.
I think that the ebooks will be exciting. I'm actually interested in looking at them. So
it's hopefully be good, but the plagiarism is always going to be a huge problem of the thing. But I put it in the you got a preface and then a disclaimer, right? So in the preface, I said, hey, listen, if you find this ebook to be helpful, but you didn't buy it, consider buying it because it supports my family. So I put that right in the preface.
That's a good way to,
Yeah, and then you have to depend on people's generosity. So hopefully the ebooks will help them enough for them to feel generous, which I've done many, many times where you're not sure if the music is going to be good. And I downloaded it as an MP3, and it's really, really good. And I play it on, during my workouts all the time. And I just purchased it, online. Yeah, because it's good. So, and it's, okay, I might download all the Game of Thrones and all the movies. So that's a little bit plagiarism.
Have you been watching the Boys, by the way?
Yeah. It's a lot of political undertones in there. Great.
Oh yeah, The Boys.
Yeah,
I guess they are, but it's not that extreme. But that was a good show. Huh? You finished it?
That was fine. Yeah, I loved it. Yeah. But these Netflix shows, they end so abruptly. It's it's serialized, so it's an overall story, and then suddenly it's over. But there's no grand finale. I didn't feel it was a grand finale.
It was literally like it just ended in the middle of an episode. And so you have to wait for next year.
I want to see what happens to Stormfront.
That was a good show. I really like it.
Because I'm sure she'll recover from her wounds. She had, Homelander blasted a hole in her chest almost.
I love that show. It's crazy.
Yeah. And then the other one, the Watchmen show, I couldn't get into.
There's a Watchmen? That's not new, though, is it?
That's new, this year.
Watchmen?
Yeah, the Watchmen. They have like a comic book, which
I know
was
they
used
got,
in
yeah.
comic, yeah, and then the movie, and then they released the Watchmen, which was completely uninteresting.
Even the movie was, I watched the movie years ago. It was hard to get into, really hard.
Oh, really? I liked it. Yeah, I
But
liked
the
it.
story was not completely clear. Like, it wasn't an obvious.
No, I had to compress it, but it's from every book to a movie. It's always not as good as the book. It's a comic book. It's not really a book, but you know.
I might go find this Watchmen thing and watch it.
Yeah, after 2 episodes, I gave up. It's I have to leave it. So
There's so little we can do. We can't go out. We can't go to the gym. We can't do anything. You know, I just changed my routine between I'm reading, I'm researching. There's not many things I can do at home. You know.
No, for guys like you and me and Derek, it's been the most productive years of our lives, probably.
Yeah, I did read a lot of. That's true.
So, you know, man, it's been very productive this year. And it's been the most boring year. I had like a 3-day holiday to patio, which is the worst place to go on a holiday. And
I saw your picture, yeah.
Man, that's it. You know, my birthday was completely eventful because there's nothing to do.
Same, yeah. I officially don't know my age because I had a birthday and I've succeeded in forgetting my age. I'm not quite sure which year my exact age, and I'm no longer going
to passport, right?
Huh?
You got a passport, right?
No. I mean, I know my age, but I don't know. I'm not going to say the number, but I don't know if I'm one number or the other because I forgot slightly. And so I'm going to try to keep it like this for the rest of my life. So I no longer remember my age and I'm 18 forever, like Big Lenny. And
yeah.
I have that perspective. But anyway,
like this year I turned 37 like 2 weeks ago, right?
Yeah.
And the age is creeping up there, and I noticed it in my body. It's not working as well as it used to be, right? And then you get hypochondriac about a little bit of a neuronal specific annulus being off, and you go do all the blood work and then the health checkup, and you just realize like, man, I'm going to turn 40 in 3 years.
If you want to, by the way, I was just going to say, like, if you're trying to turn off mTOR every so often, metformin won't be potent enough. But have you ever thought of using rapamycin?
No, you talked about it last time.
There's really a lot of value in using like 5 milligrams once a month or maybe 2.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not advising anyone obviously to do that because it will actually raise the immune system if you only use it once a week or once a month. There's one study showing it does. It's quite in humans, by the way, improve the immune system.
Okay.
But you have to not do it frequently enough. So it's like once a week and not take too high a dose. So not over 5 milligrams. But I think for bodybuilders, that may be the best way to invest in the future. Because
mTOR is like sky high all the time,
Yes. So if you take like a 5-day fast and take mTOR on the first day, once a month, then you're going to get a really total shutdown of growth for a few days. Total shutdown. You don't have to go through those 2-day periods. So as you go,
I'm happy being 240, 250. So it's I enjoy training super heavy. That's the most fun aspect. But I realized in 250 test and 200 primo, I was getting, I was big enough.
No, what I mean to say is like you were saying, as you get older, damage occurs in the body. And I was just saying, one of the ways to be a bit more aggressive, maybe in terms of cellular repair, would be rapamycin, especially for
I probably need to because we're getting to that 40 age. But then again, I know so many bodybuilders that have been bodybuilding for ages and they're in their 40s and 50s and they're still doing very, very well. It's just about moderation at that time.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder how much we can really tell about us doing well. I mean, most people don't very early. Most people, they start dropping off they're supposed to start dropping off after 60, right?
Mm-hmm.
So these people may just be dying in their 60s or so. The idea with mTOR is basically this, right? Every cell can divide a certain number of times, and at the end of that number of times, it has a choice. It either dies in apoptosis, or it becomes a senescent. Senescent cell, like a zombie cell that releases pro-inflammatory cytokines. The more growth hormone and mTOR and protein and everything you have, the more number of divisions you have to make during your life. And eventually you're going to reach that 40th whatever division, and then either your cell will go away, in which case you have no problem, or it'll turn into the zombie senescent cell, in which case things are going to start not working as well. You're going to start to feel joints.
Yeah, it's also because the telomere shorten and it goes into the DNA, because every time it divides, right, your DNA shortens. That's why the telomeres are there to prevent that from happening. And that's why you can only divide 40 to 50 times. So you might be able to extend the telomeres with Winstrol, anti-aging supplement number one.
Yeah. It's true.
And or maybe astragalus, or there's a peptide as well. I think it was a peptide that increases telomere.
Well, there's a peptide that directly increases the activity of telomere.
Yeah. I can't remember what it was. So hopefully, you're speeding up the aging process with bodybuilding just naturally. That's just part of it. And then later on, when you reach that end cycle, you probably want to do as much anti-aging as you can. But then again, I think if you start anti-aging from the beginning, you'll never build a significant amount of muscle mass.
No, you can't.
No.
That doesn't make. I totally.
So you're exchanging short-term goals for long-term goals or long-term life.
No, but you can have. I think that you can still build muscle on a lifestyle like yours. Like you can't go, go fasting, but you have a way of approaching bodybuilding with health that I think you can still build very well on.
I think so, but all I need is a little bit more refinement. So I'm happy being 240, 250. I mean, I don't look like a bodybuilder now. There's all the androgens.
Oh, you look like a bodybuilder. Calm down.
Already gone. My bulging shoulder. I need to flex. Just to show a little bit of definition. But it's. I gotta.
You're starting to hallucinate. You think you don't have muscle. There's all kinds of things happening on your 4th day of the fast.
It's terrible. No? Yeah. It's such a mindfuck, man. It's. I told my wife, okay, we're gonna go outside. We're gonna do PCT. And I'm not going to take your advice to do a testosterone replacement. I might as well go through the entire PCT now. It's to experience it because it's been 8 years. And at one point, I'll need to do PCT anyway to get my wife pregnant. So maybe this is the good time.
Are you going to block the pituitary gonadotropin releasing hormone receptor?
You mean antagonize it with triptorelin, or?
Yeah, antagonize it. Yeah, triptorelin. Are you going to use triptorelin? Yeah. Are you going to use triptorelin?
Yeah, so if I can get a prescription for it, because I only want to use prescribed triptorelin, it's FDA approved here in the 100 microgram vials, so not the 3.75 sterility amount, where you just desensitize the gonadotropin receptors. So I'll get a prescription for that, hopefully. And otherwise, I'll use ACG and HMG together.
So for the audience to know, Vigorous Steve is talking about a really ingenuitive approach to reinvigorating your testosterone production, your gonads. Right. Basically, the brain there's 3 parts of the axis: the hypothalamus, the pituitary, and the gonads. Where the first 2 are both in the brain. One of them the hypothalamus produces gonadotropin releasing hormone, which then the pituitary receives at the gonadotropin releasing hormone receptor. And then the pituitary produces LH, which HCG acts as sort of in the body, and FSH, which HMG contains. So basically, Steve has been blocking the pituitary gonadotropin releasing hormone receptor to make it upregulate so that it can receive the signal from the hypothalamus, which isn't. I mean, it's not actually.
Not yet. I still need to wait for all the hormones to decline because I don't want to send the negative feedback loop. So when I feel like a little girl and I'll do my blood work and my test is 0 and my estrogen is at the bottom, then it's a good time to start PCT because then you don't have a negative feedback.
It's pretty interesting because I was thinking about it. Although I've never done what you described, blocking gonadotropin releasing hormone, I have blocked dopamine personally in my own life, as well as I've advised clients to try it to recover their dopamine function.
Right.
Like, so for example, imagine someone went to too many parties or whatever, he's been using a lot of these drugs and he's not getting much of an effect. If you take an atypical antipsychotic for like a week or 2 weeks, you'll block those dopamine receptors and regulate a little bit. So it's really interesting, And
it's probably the same for the guys that overdosed in cabergoline, and because it's antagonizes the prolactin receptor, or the prolactin.
The dopamine receptor, which causes the prolactin.
Right.
Good point.
Yeah, a lot of guys get addicted to that stuff, man. The cabergoline. It's not. I've had so many consultations. My prolactin is 0. I can't get, libido is gone, and I use Trenbolone. And ask how much cabergoline you take. 1 milligram per day.
Well, first of all, that stuff is crazy expensive. So I don't know how the hell they can afford it. But second of all, cabergoline causes fibrotic cardiac valves in a very significant. Pramipexole is a non-ergot derived dopamine receptor agonist, and pramipexole does cause reversible heart failure, but not the cardiac valve fibrosis thing that cabergoline causes.
And so combine it with nandrolone with left ventricle enlargement.
Yeah.
It's a great combination.
Very scary. I mean, yeah, it's very scary. Honestly, it's very scary. I know. I was always really averse to using the dopamine agonists.
Yeah, but then again, you use testosterone for years, and you might cause this testicular fibrosis as well.
Yeah, well, I think it'll definitely cause that.
Yeah.
But you mentioned the prostate in your video. By the way, the reason why I take finasteride is because of the exact same situation as your father, which is my father also has prostate enlargement.
Yeah.
I don't have hair loss, actually. Well, whatever. I don't know what it is, but I don't think it's for that reason.
So, the prostate enlarges with age, right? So, after 40, and then you're artificially increasing your DHT levels, which it responds most to with the, exogenous testosterone. So the more tests you take, the more DHT you have, and it accelerates the rate of prostate enlargement, especially when you combine it with primobolan or any other DHT derivatives.
So I think that the ideal combination really is to when you're on testosterone. If I was still on testosterone, I would take finasteride because DHT is not very active as for skeletal muscle synthesis or anything really. It's not very useful. So if you block DHT, you'll get less side effects in terms of prostate enlargement and neurotoxicity as well. Yeah. But then I would take progesterone. So you make sure you have enough progesterone so that your brain, because then you'll decrease neurosteroid synthesis. But if you have progesterone, it actually, I sent Derek the evidence, by the way, for this. It's a great paper. If you want, I can send it to you too. But basically in that paper, it shows that there's a study of rodents showing that if you give them progesterone, their allopregnanolone synthesis increases dramatically and make up for someone makes up for the difference of reducing. So basically it shows that in people, if you block 5-alpha reductase activity and give progesterone, you may end up with the same amount of allopregnanolone in the end.
Okay, yeah, I'll look into that pathway because I increased my DHEA and pregnenolone recently because I noticed that even on supplemental 25 milligrams of DHEA and 10 milligrams of pregnenolone, my values started decreasing a little bit. So I increased it to 50 milligrams of DHEA and 25 milligrams of pregnenolone, and I immediately felt better, going by feeling. I didn't check my levels after that, but I will do the next blood work. So it's always interesting to add more things to the hormone replacement protocol. But at one point, you're just replacing everything: test pregnenolone, progesterone, DHEA, because
Well, that's the life of a biohacker. We're constantly changing every small thing. Yeah, exactly.
It's how much biohacking can you do? Because you hack this part and you get side effects there. You're taking this to combat the side effects, which will cause side effects somewhere else. Exactly. And then you're spending $200 in supplements every month. Well, it's more than the steroids you're taking.
That's definitely true. All right, Steve, listen, I have to have you back soon. We can't let too long go between our podcast episodes. So we'll try to get you on.
For sure, man. Also, always happy to come on, for sure.
Keep me updated on what's going on.
We'll do.
One last thing I should mention. So DHEA and pregnenolone, just so you know, they agonize the sigma-1 receptor, and that causes enhanced dopamine transmission also. So it should probably put people off to a good mood as well.
Yeah, no, that's what I noticed as well. And that's, that's why it increases well-being through a couple different pathways, and it increases libido as well. But that's mostly in guys that are estrogen deficient, and then the DHEA converts into estrogen, which controls libido also.
Fascinating.
So there's always a cascading effect of all these things. But what I noticed with most guys is that everybody just suppresses their estrogen way too much.
Yes.
Because they're afraid. They're afraid, I need to keep it at 10 micrograms per milliliter. And you wonder why your dick don't work, Yeah,
you need to keep it as high as you can tolerate, really.
Yeah.
The opposite. Yeah.
75 micrograms per milliliter, that's a nice 50 to 75. No gyno, a little bit of water retention, and pleasure for you and everybody else in your household.
Hopefully not everyone else if you have a big household. But
I have only one person in my household, but it's maybe I have to.
Household, but it can. Yeah. All right, Steve.
The main partner in your house.
On that note, we'll see you soon, huh?